What the heck is going on, ladies and gentlemen? The wide people of the earth. We're here. We're back again. Another episode. Plat Chat Valorant, episode 28 this time.
Hell yeah.
Can you believe that we've done 28 episodes of Plat Chat Valorant?
No. Am I supposed to say yes? What's the correct answer there?
I mean, yes, I can believe it because
it's been
objectively true.
It's happened. I was here for all of them.
What were you saying, Avash?
Oh, once again, guys, for everyone at home, my audio is coming through a tin can on that side of the aisle. So we're doing sort of a string and tin can method here for Plat Chat. So it's really good stuff for Plat Chat Valorant. But I just said yes, I can believe.
Yeah,
you would have missed that great insight.
We're gonna have a lot of moments like that, I think, to be honest. But yeah, we can dive straight into this. We got a jam-packed episode. You know, I'm talking strawberries and shit. A lot of jam.
Yeah. Huge amounts of jam.
Let's start with the first bit of news. TenZ has left the Cloud9 Valorant roster. So in terms of competitive play, there's been a lot of back and forth. I've been getting my news through the little TenZ Timmy viewers.
Oh, really?
They've been clipping it and like throwing it into the void. And I've been watching that. And so far I've seen TenZ go from, I'm moving into content creation to, I'm going to play when the land's out to, I could play sooner than that. And it's a little bit all over the place. Yeah. Overall though, I'll start things off by saying what a massive loss to competitive Valorant, I think, in the short term.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's the thing that struck me immediately when TenZ said, because on the face of it, when he first announced it, he said he was going into content creation, right? Yeah. And you have to accept that until he revises the story later on. But on the face value of TenZ leaving Cloud9 and leaving, he said, competitive Valorant to go into content creation, that's it. It's always made financial sense for many people to do stuff like this, but it's still well. That's the doorbell because Wyatt really wants his coffee.
Just a really good start so far. This is excellent.
Yeah. Well, he's just wandering around eating his coffee. Anyway, it makes financial sense for a lot of people, but it's a massive loss when you have someone essentially at their prime, or maybe hasn't even got to his prime. That's the thing with TenZ, right? Is that he has all of this potential at the beginning of a game. He hasn't really won anything, but he's already noted as one of the best players in North America. Some people would say the best player in North America. I would be inclined to put him up there. And him going into content creation is just a massive loss for the scene. You've lost probably your most skilled all-round player because ostensibly, at least at the beginning, because the bag is available for him in content creation for less stress.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to say more so because I'm not him. I don't know. But at least from what he was saying and from what I had watched, which was a YouTube video on his channel where he was essentially just answering chat questions, it did seem like there was a lot of focus from him on the being forced to play online element, not having LANs to go to, which has been the case for a lot of players and their lack of interest in competing at the moment in not just Valorant, but I mean, that's been a massive problem with CS all year. So in that respect, it does make sense as a competitor to sort of be demotivated or less interested in fiercely competing when you're just sat in your room all year. I mean, I think that's really occurred in every sport over this past year, right? So from what he had said, at least it seems like he wants to come back when there are going to be LANs again, which presumably will be at the end of this year.
Yes. I mean, assuming everything goes well. I don't buy that for a couple of reasons, though. The first being that the burnout that's on TenZ right now is nowhere near as extreme as like the burnout that's in the Overwatch League or like CSGO Pros and stuff like that. We're talking about the very birth of an esport. Like the guy's just taken an enormous break to get into Valorant. Then he's played not quite a year, but nearly a year of tournaments. And the light is at the end of the tunnel at this point. And if you don't continue to scrim with a top level team, even someone like TenZ, is going to drop a little bit. Now, he's still probably going to be able to come back and play lands at any point when he wants to. He's that skilled. Is he going to be the number one player, though? No. I mean, almost certainly he is not going to be if he just decides to take a long break, only playing ranked and stuff, and then tries to get back into a team. Like, he's not going to... You want to. This is the time in your career where you want to continue the pace that you've set for yourself at the beginning of an esport. Like, you've got to. When I look at this, I feel like you've got to have the stamina to be able to go. If you want to be truly one of the greats, and I don't know really what the guy's motivation is or what his aspirations are competitively, but he has the potential to be one. It seems at the moment in the early stages of the game to be one of the like all-time greats in this game, and. You need, like, now is the time where you need to put in that work in order to stay ahead once it gets to the lands, I think.
It just depends on what his motivation is, right? Like, he has to, I mean, because what, his stream now, he gets like consistent like 10K-ish viewers, you know? Isn't that around where he's like at all the time?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and then he has like a crazy, his YouTube has exploded. So, I mean, realistically, especially since like kind of the end goal of a lot of players' careers, depending on what their minds are at, like often ends in them going up into content creation anyways at the end of their career. Like, it obviously depends on the player, but I would say like for a lot of the big players, they pretty much always end up going in towards like the content creation route and like personal streaming or like maybe the branching off into like org work or broadcast work. But I do feel like for TenZ, it just depends on his exact motivations. And also, if we're being honest, like, I'm sure TenZ teams will scramble to pick him up again as soon as he says like, hey, I'm ready to play, right? Like, no one's gonna deny him a spot. Now, if he's not good, like if he shows up, it's not good, but if he's not like amazing when he first shows up, that's possible. But at this point, I was more surprised, more so than his retirement, more so than his legacy. I mean, I guess we'll talk about it actually later, but I was about to talk about how like I actually didn't think C9 looked that horrible during the winter event, but without him. But I do think that TenZ is like a special case of like some guy that personally I don't necessarily know if he is going to be completely down and out of it, even if he takes a break.
Well,
no,
just because how early scene is.
I do think this is a very foolish move, which is a more polite way to say what I said in the kitchen yesterday, Wyatt. You said that on the podcast, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. But I think this is
for his career, you mean?
Yeah, because I think content creation, when you're in the position that TenZ is in with your content creation, with your stream and your YouTube and whatnot, that's something that you can keep that going. I think when you're being a pro player,
you can keep it running on idle.
Actually, yeah, you can keep it running on idle. I don't know if you definitely won't see as much growth compared to if you were full-time into content creation. But what I will say is that I think the benefits of if you wanted to eventually move into content creation, the benefits of being at the top of a pro scene for a period of time, being known as potentially the best player in the world, I think outweigh the growth you could gain by stopping now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that he's going to regret this decision, I think, unless he decides to go back into pro play.
But I feel like he's already hit that mark, though, don't you think, Bryn? Like, people were calling him the best player in the world earlier in the game's life cycle, and he's ridden that high to where he's at now.
But esports isn't even at its peak yet.
I mean, it's not even started yet.
It hasn't even started.
Yeah.
Like, this would be like being the best player in... to provide some context for, I guess, our Overwatch viewers. It's like... You've won all the Alienware monthly melees in Overwatch, and you've quit, and you're riding that high.
It is somewhat similar to what Seagull did, to be honest. It's not exactly the same, but Seagull was known as like an incredibly skilled player in Overwatch, really rode the hype in the early times, and then decided to retire at the beginning of the Overwatch League. It's not really the same because Seagull was doing it for much longer, I would say. But TenZ has still been around in CS, and he's been doing stuff like playing at a semi kind of level.
I think the difference, I think the small difference would be that TenZ wasn't really big in CS. I mean, he was known in the competitive scene, but Seagull blew up at the very beginning of Overwatch.
Yes, it was like late 2015, I think.
Yeah, and he definitely paid his dues in the competitive sense. Where TenZ was on top as an individual, not even as a team. I mean, he didn't even win a title.
No,
that's kind of I don't know.
I think he's going to regret this decision because what you were saying, Josh, is super. I think. just correct in general. When you're thinking about a pro player, and I think I saw a clip of Hiko having a similar opinion, where he's like, if you stop playing, you're going to fall behind. Even a player like TenZ, who is at the top of his game right now currently in terms of the way he thinks about the game, mechanically, I think you'll find that he can jump into the game fine. And he's still going to be able to aim as good as everybody else. But the game evolves rapidly. Even in the brief period of time of like 2 months, like at the end of First Strike, when I kind of like took my foot off the gas in terms of watching professional Valorant and going back to watching the Nerd Street Gamers tournament, the game has evolved so much at a tier 2 level already.
Yeah.
Like, the teams have gotten so much better in this short amount of time. Like, if he leaves it until the LAN event, which we don't know when that is, they say that they want the LAN event to be the last challengers.
I think they
year,
wanted it to be
but-
Masters 3, which I think is scheduled for like, I want to say September, October, something like that.
But even then, I mean, there's to give you some background information in terms of like sporting events, some early predictions I was reading for MMA to go back to having in-person events was like 2022 or 2023 is when they're expecting it, which is it seems like to me, a pessimistic prediction. But I don't know. It feels like, they're banking on with LANs happening.
You could still run LANs though without a live crowd, which isn't really the case for MMA, right? Like when they're talking about that, they're talking about a full live crowd experience, I think.
No, you are correct, yeah. But even still, I think that if he waits until the LAN event, he's going to fall behind. And when he jumps into pro play, I don't think he's going to be considered to be in that top spot in terms of best in the world. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. I mean, I think we all wish TenZ the best, but I think he's made a bit of a mistake here.
The thing is, though, I don't believe that he's made a mistake because I don't believe the reasons that have been publicly stated.
Sure.
That's what I was about to... So I was about to pose the question. Do we think that there are other reasons that are not in the public space as to why this happened? Now, this is obviously speculation, but it's hard to look at this and not think of the most recent Cloud9 result and the removal of Shinobi from the team, the addition of Leaf, the problems that has seemed to cause in the team. But were those the reasons you were thinking of? Or
I mean, those are primarily the reasons. Is that Cloud9 the reason that they were called TenZ and Friends as a meme for so long is because they were literally TenZ and Friends.
Yeah.
I mean, they were people that had played with each other on many other...
They were all
teammates
ex-teammates at different points in CS.
Yeah, these guys were actually friends with each other. That's what made the drama about, like, you know, when TenZ had to publicly say that he didn't kick Shinobi or something. Like, that always struck me as just being nonsense, because why would he ever? That doesn't make any sense if you look back at, like, the history of how the team was made. It was... In my opinion, it was clearly a suit move to get rid of Shinobi, and it doesn't solve any of the issues. Yeah, it has to be.
It was.
Yeah, and then I can't imagine that TenZ wanted that change to happen. And I think as well, I did see a clip from Steel where he said he said something like he was just gloating about it on Hiko's stream because he had said when Shinobi left the team or was removed from the team that TenZ would follow, and so when TenZ announced that he was, you know, retiring, becoming a content creator, he was on Hiko's stream and he just went, "Hiko, I told you so."
I can play that clip right now if you want.
I mean, it was pretty... I mean, TenZ, he had said himself in that like tweet statement when Shinobi was removed that he had to clarify that he said in that straight up that he didn't want Shinobi gone.
Yeah.
So it was clearly... not up to him, was a decision made elsewhere.
And the fact that TenZ keeps talking on stream about, would you go to another team? Oh, well, you know, maybe it depends who would buy me out of my buy me out of my contract, etc., etc. Like, all of the hints that he's dropping on stream indicate to me that he's thinking in his head about the long-term future not being on Cloud9. He's not going to return back to Cloud9 at the end of this. And it seems like a move to just be on the bench and get collected by someone else eventually.
Yeah. I think that's a big... I think that is part of it.
So honestly, the actual hypothesis being posed here is that you're proposing that TenZ left because his friends started to leave and they started to view, like, maybe the people in charge of the roster started to think about what would our roster be without TenZ, essentially.
No. Sorry.
TenZ himself just wanted to go because he wanted to leave C9.
Yeah, I should clearly state my speculative tinfoil hat theory here, which is that I think that TenZ, as well as like not enjoying playing online and stuff like that, the tipping point for him to being like, I'm actually not enjoying this at all right now, was the Cloud9 org kind of fucking with the roster and kicking Shinobi and him not liking the direction of the team. That in my head is like what the tipping point probably was for TenZ deciding that he wants to short-term go into content creation and then wait out his contract and get picked up by another team that he believes has actual title aspirations. That's what I actually think is going on. That's the only way in which it makes sense as a career move. And I don't think TenZ is dumb.
I think I feel as well that is what happened. That was my initial thought when I saw that that he was making this move. I think the timing just lines up for it as well for him, where it's like, okay, the team is clearly not working at this point. I think he's had enough. He's disappointed with the moves. And then his stream it's been blowing up at the same time, and he's been very successful there. Can stay in the game doing that, and then just, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back before there's lands. It would not surprise me to see him return to competitive play.
If someone buys him out of his
if he
contract.
gets bought out of his contract, which I don't think Cloud9 is going to let that happen without a hefty fee.
Yeah, I mean,
but I don't know when that contract is going to end, because he's been with Cloud9 for a long time now, because he started with them in CS. I don't know what his contract looks like. I wasn't in the meeting, so I don't know. Wasn't there. But I guess I wouldn't be surprised if pretty much when his contract is over, he starts. Looks like he might be trying out with other teams, or he might even just return immediately.
Yeah.
It would not shock me. I think the timing just lines up for all of these things to be factors. I think all the public things that have been said are all real as well.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think that it's hard to imagine he's not disappointed in what's happening with the team. He's possibly I don't know how like confident or like, I guess more so like cocky he is as a player in terms of like where does he rank himself. Like, when you're a player, typically you're thinking like you're the shit and you're number one. So I wouldn't be surprised if to some extent he thinks he's the number one player. You want to be winning things. You don't want to be coming last place in the PO1 tournament against just tier 2, and like it's you got to be disappointed, you'd imagine. So
I also saw an upsetting narrative in the wake of TenZ becoming a content creator, which was he was never that good anyway. He didn't win anything.
Okay, I didn't see that.
I did see that narrative as well.
What's this narrative?
Okay, where are you? What corners of the internet are you guys lurking on?
I was just my my internet has not been working. We moved to Austin, and all the internet providers in the world refuse to give me a line because my address is not registered. I'll drop my address in the description below. And I also spilt beer on my laptop, so I was using my laptop to hog your Wi-Fi because you live next door, and I can no longer do that. So the only thing I've been doing is scrolling Twitter on my phone, and I saw many people tweeting and getting a bunch of likes as well, indicating that there are at least a few people out there who truly believe that, where they're like, TenZ wasn't even that good anyway. He's,
he never won anything in CS. He was always really bad. Like, he was pretty mediocre and overhyped. And I saw these same narratives, but I don't think any of these narratives are necessarily be worthy of being called out by name. But they definitely existed. They definitely
these people
existed.
Watch the game.
No, I think they're CS fans that just believe that TenZ can never accomplish anything in Valorant because he never accomplished anything in CS. And that clearly is not the case if you've ever watched him play.
Yeah.
So I worry about this guy's
ignore CS history in general, or not CS history, but esports, because so many players go on to, when they're unsuccessful in one game, will go have success in another game. It just happens all the time.
But it strikes me as the kind of thought that could worm its way into the general narrative about TenZ as well, given enough time. If he's actually a content creator for, let's say, 8 months until Masters 3 comes out or something like that, in September, I feel like when he comes back, there'll be definitely people who remember the stats and stuff like that. But if he actually ends up having poorer performances when it comes to LAN and stuff like that, that kind of narrative will end up defining him of being like, oh, it's the same as CS, where he just didn't have what it took to be able to perform at the top level. I can feel the worm of that digging its way in too, where I feel that he needs to be in a position to control his own narrative, his own destiny. That's what he's missing out on here by going into content creation, is that he should be trying to stay ahead of the pack and quash all of that doubt that's surrounded him.
Well, it just depends where his mentality is, though, right? Because I mean, I've seen it happen. I mean, to so many players, and it's probably just repeated throughout all of esports in every game, no matter the game. It's like once you hit the level of stream success that TenZ has, you sort of stop existing within the mortal realm in terms of like what your needs are. Like you no longer need to have to worry about like the average thing that most esport personalities or players are worrying about. You're so divorced from that reality that you are your own little nation state. You are the nation state of TenZ, and you can commit to treaties with various orgs as you wish, but like you are still independent on your own. And it really does shift your whole mentality. It's like, sure, TenZ maybe at one point could have been like, I'm all aboard the competing hype train, but then he starts getting 10,000 Twitch Timmys and 300 kajillion YouTube, I don't even know what a Y name would be, Yvonne's or something, you know, and the whole point being
YouTube Yvonne's. Yeah,
so
you'll have to workshop that one a bit.
Your mentality changes a lot when you become that popular, because you no longer have to worry about your other career aspirations, and you already are so successful doing what you currently are that your whole mindset can change very quickly. And it's not to say that TenZ isn't necessarily going to come back, right? But it just has I've seen it repeated over and over again. A great example is like Sneaky, very, very popular player in League of Legends. Had a lot of people thought he was pretty good for like an NA League player, NA League, Omega LOL type of thing. But the point being, Sneaky became a really big content creator, and now he's sort of like, I don't really need to worry about going back to play professionally because I'm such a popular content creator on Twitch. So you do need to think about sort of where the mindset shift happens when someone makes it this big. And also, as an aside, completely anecdotal, this is not fact-based at all, but I think personally, the bigger you get as a content creator, if you view that as like your primary goal, like you are a streamer first and foremost and a player second versus a player first and a content creator second, I think the worse you get as a teammate. Just because your nation state self, your mentality is warped to start viewing everything in the U-shaped lens. Like everything is through your perspective, not the team perspective, which really, I personally anecdotally think can change a player a lot in terms of how you go back, right? It's one thing if you're you have a big stream, but you view yourself as a player first. It's another if you have a big stream, but you view yourself as a content creator first. And that's also
that's incredibly, to think about. It's incredibly self-reflective as you, as a self-made millionaire on Twitch, to realize that you've kind of
self-made
abandoned
millionaire that
ZP.
hasn't streamed in like 3 weeks. I haven't streamed in 3 weeks. Yeah, I'm doing the Clint Stevens for all you Clint Stevens fans out there. But it's I just think it's something to think about for. You don't know Clint Stevens? No, you guys know Clint Stevens?
No.
No.
I'm a fan of Ast. I'm a fan.
Okay, see, Kurt knows.
Nice. Kurt's down with the kids.
Let's talk about the tournament that happened. Yeah?
Yeah.
Sure.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, let's talk about
Well,
it.
do we want to...
Should we talk about...
We can talk about
C9?
LG, but I was going to say maybe we just transition into just talking about the C9 team. Because I think, at least for me, going in, expectations weren't high.
No.
Were they high for anyone else here? Or
No.
Were they high
But can you
for
refer to them
anyone?
by their new name now, Wyatt, though? It's now Mitches and Bitches versus TenZ and Friends. It's now Mitches and Bitches.
Yeah, I felt like I don't know. I'm a little bit more optimistic about this current Cloud9 roster, or not in terms of like what I expect them to do as a team, but just individually as players. I think off the back of this tournament. Do you guys hold the same opinion as that? But I kind of walked away from the match not thinking this Cloud9 roster has a future, but more like these players have potential.
I walked away thinking that this team could retain a spot in the top 10 reasonably in NA. I think that the issue for them going forward is going to be the players that are filling the duelist roles to some extent. I think that they have a really good supportive line now. Like Leaf was the standout for me.
Yeah.
I thought that he
really
looked
good.
He's really, first of all, he is still really new. He looked really good. I think he has a lot of potential, but he is going to be in one of the support roles where he's playing Omen, but he was an excellent player. and Zeta as well from Korea, who was standing in from Cloud9 Korea, who'd had some good performances in the Korean scene, like notably the Icebox win against Vision Strikers in First Strike. Zeta was like the standout player on that map for me. And it was evident watching, which I found interesting, that his utility usage was just so good. It was just beyond.
There was a tweet from, I think it was from one of the Cloud9 guys, where they said the best breach in NA is from Korea. And it's actually true. I mean, Zeta immediately came in. It's not like he's a full-time breach player either. He's played... I thought he was playing mostly Sova, wasn't he, for Cloud9? Is my brain melting into a pile of goo?
Well, we can look at it right now. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, if you could
I remember him
fact
playing
check me.
Sky.
So
Yeah, I think he's played a bunch of different stuff.
majority Sova, but he did have actually like a lot of playtime on Omen and Breach still. So
Yeah. But
like he was primarily Sova, but I would say he had plenty of time on the other.
sure,
two
but
agents.
my point kind of is that he is not known as like one of the breach gods of Korea.
No.
And he still came in and he had better utility usage than every other NA breach, bar like one or two on specific maps. I don't
Breach
know, man.
doesn't get played much in NA anyway,
I
right?
would say he's been more popular recently. I would say he's been a lot more popular recently.
People dabbled with it for a while, yeah, for sure. But anyway, the team itself, and I think I came away from this tournament thinking that Cloud9 have they've solved their role issues by kicking their best player. And that does not make any sense.
I think
the same issues still exist with Cloud9, where Mitch can only really play the Jet, but he can get away with it now because he's not playing with 10s. And Relix can only play the Raze particularly, and he can get away with it now because he's not playing with 10s. But how is that a valid solution? And who the hell is that at the door?
Who is next?
Look at me, I
Who's
didn't
next
order
at the
more
door?
Starbucks.
What the heck are we talking about? Cloud9?
Yeah, we're talking about Cloud9 in the
We're
tournament.
talking about Breach, Zeta.
Well,
yeah.
no, I was.
But it was just like the role swaps in general. We were and
Yeah.
like how
Yeah.
C9 looked.
So what I was going to say was
Okay.
that I think Cloud9 has still got all the same issues that they previously had, where their players don't have large enough agent pools that they're excellent at. It's not that Relix can't play the Omen. He can, and they swap him to Omen on a couple of the maps. But it's nowhere near as good. Like, part of the reason that I thought Cloud9 looked so good on Split, in particular, in this tournament, was because Relix was permanently playing Raze, and they had Mitch on the Jet. And Mitch and Relix are good in those roles, but it never worked previously because you had 10 still on the roster. And obviously you're not going to deliberately remove 10s in order to fix your role issues. So they had to go about it in different ways, which is why a shuffle was coming to this team for a long time. And now it's been like accidentally handed to them, but in a positive way.
My take on this as well, actually, and how it's going to affect this team, if they choose to stick with this current roster in terms of not making too many changes, I think you're going to see the individual players perform much better now that Tens is gone, which sounds weird, right? You'd think with Tens in a team. But I think over the course of Cloud9's kind of history as a team in Valorant, where they've had 10s on this roster, I think that they've had to make playstyle adjustments to suit 10s, like you were saying, with the compositions. I think it goes a little bit deeper than that as well in terms of the way they play to support 10s and enable him as a player. I think you're going to come out of this and you're going to be seeing better performances out of Mitch, out of Relix, just across the board, I think, assuming that they stay on the roster.
Yeah, I personally, I feel that Relix and Mitch are definitely going to have to step up quite a bit. They had some success in this tournament, and they had some games where they looked like they were cracked out. But they were getting immense support. They have a great support line to make them look good, which is not a knock. That's a good thing. But also, those were in the games against less competent teams. Like, it was against E United, where Mitch looked like a freak. It's against Ghosts, where they look. I mean, these are not the caliber of teams that, it's just a different tier, right? It's a lower tier.
Because they end up getting knocked out by Andbox.
Yeah,
right? And that was definitely a different tier than those other squads.
Yeah, absolutely. Andbox are, in terms of their competence as an actual team, is just on a different level from E United or Ghost right now. And you could start to see Cloud9 crumble against that. But also this Cloud9 5-man team here is very new, or at least it's seemingly really new. I guess we don't know exactly when TenZ decided to stop playing and when they started playing with Zeta. But regardless, I think that they're going to have a pretty solid team all around. I think their support line is going to be really good, but I think you're going to need to see a lot more individual output from Relix and Mitch if they really want to succeed. And I think that the peak for this team is maybe like making semifinals. If they really
in a tier 1 tournament,
if they're, I'm saying this is their peak. If they're if they're playing at their absolute best, I think they could make a semifinal. But I think that's the most that they could go to.
Yeah, I think that's optimistic.
Considering LG beat Sentinels, I don't think it's out of the question. Like I don't think anyone before this tournament was going to think that. So I don't think it's unreal to see this roster make it to a semis.
I think for the most part, though, they're going to be hanging around in the quarterfinal to basically 10th through 6th NA, like that sort of area. But I'm saying if they really maximize this roster, I think they have the potential to, if they get they could make a semifinal. I don't think they're going to win tournaments, but
I think they still have. Okay. I think they still have issues with actually finalizing what the roles are for everybody as well, because they're still messing around putting Leaf sometimes on the Killjoy as well. Like you saw Bind there, where they want to run the solo duelist comp, where Relix moves over to the Omen then, and Vice picks up the Sova, and then Leaf is kind of left playing the Killjoy too. I thought Leaf looked pretty decent on the Killjoy, but at his best on the Omen. So I would like them to try and move in that direction. I don't think that they... I think that they've proven with their Ascent performances, for example, as well, where they started out playing Leaf on the Reyna and ended up transitioning to Relix on the Raze too. I think they've kind of proven there that they don't need a Sova and a Breach in all of their compositions. They can get away with playing one or the other depending on what Sunny is most comfortable with, and he can play the Sova as well, assuming he would be a long-time player. But even if he wasn't, some kind of Breach Sova player that would slot in there would still work for that team. But you need consistent roles for consistent performances. I don't see how they're going to have long-term success with this roster if they keep just messing around everybody's roles. I think it's spectacular that Leaf's had the success he has while being on a team that doesn't have the greatest identity and doesn't have a set role for him. It's spectacular how good Leaf looks in those circumstances.
Yeah.
I feel like it poses a question too for this roster, that since we've seen Zeta look pretty good for having Korea to NA ping, and everyone's immediate wait a minute, the best Breach player is some person that a lot of these guys maybe have never even heard of and is playing on 200 ping and is playing from Korea. It poses an interesting question of do more rosters, especially rosters that have had experience operating in Korea, as Valorant gets a little bit more fleshed out and people feel like they want to make more moves. I wonder if it starts to bring up more of orgs going to more Korean players potentially in the future and bringing them on to NA rosters, because there's a lot of untapped potential in that market, and it would be very funny if we have sort of a second game where I sort of view it a tiny bit like Overwatch, where the NA money just brings over all these players to come compete in their region. Though I guess it's no different than League either, because it does open up that possibility depending on what Zeta's run is with C9 in the future.
I think the regional rules will probably prevent a lot of that. If you remember the rule book, I can't remember how many players. I know they have import
limits, right?
Yeah, it's pretty lax though. You can still have.
That's just limits. You could still bring players over.
That's one of the factors that will limit it. But the big one will be the fact that currently no one can travel into the US. So
that is big. But I'm saying in the future, the future.
Yeah, of course, in the future. Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of talent in there, and I don't think it's any stretch of the imagination to say that Zeta came in here and he looked like one of the best players in North America when it comes to Breach, about the utility usage. That's the conclusion I think that we all agree with here at the end of this talking point. We can talk about the team that won the tournament. We can, if you want.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to just talk about how good they are for
Luminosity.
20 minutes.
Yeah, this was a surprise, I think, at least for me, presumably a lot of other people as well involved, because I think when you looked at the teams involved in this tournament overall, I think the expectations were, okay, Sentinels in the finals, and they're probably going to win the whole thing. There may have been some fighting back from certain teams, maybe like Envy stepping up potentially.
But then they've always had a really good matchup historically with Envy. So really, when you looked at this tournament, it just seemed like a slam dunk win for Sentinels.
Yeah, it really did.
But they ended up walking away with the win in a 3-2 and denying the reverse sweep from Sentinels.
Well, that wasn't the only surprise either. I mean, there was NRG too. I feel like we should talk with them after this. We should talk about NRG.
Oh, trust me, I got plans to. Don't you worry, little Avast. Don't you worry. I got plans to. Yeah. Luminosity, though, I mean, god damn, what a fucking unreal performance from them. From top to bottom, I feel like it wasn't... I'm not going to say that they played a clean tactical style of Valorant, but my god, did they have some individual pop-off moments.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, I appreciate Luminosity for providing us with some of the most entertaining series we've had in Valorant so far. They've had so many unbelievably close, ridiculous overtime maps that always come down to individual crazy shit happening. Like all the way back to First Strike as well. They've had so many insane maps. They're very entertaining to watch. But I have to say, I was unbelievably impressed with that finals performance. Specifically, I keep going back to their bind attack half was phenomenal. Their play was so good, and not in the respect to like they're not reinventing the wheel in terms of utility usage. They're not really doing anything spectacular or new, remarkable there. Where they excel is in the actual in the post plant situations, in fight situations, their individual decision making, their individual positioning, and then their ability to play off of each other and effectively trade in those situations is unbelievable. It's so good. Their decision making post plants of where they position themselves and reposition on the fly to support each other, it is genuinely so amazing. And that bind attack half, I think, was the perfect example of that. They played just phenomenally to me. I was really impressed.
Yeah, they look like their fundamentals have gone up a lot. Like a lot of their wins, when, like you said, it wasn't some crazy tactics. It wasn't great utility usage. They had an interesting style, which was like the kind of contact-based style, a little like Heretics. Whereas, when you think about Heretics, you think about these like great set plays to control the map at the beginning of the round, but then they're really just gonna contact push you in various locations and punish you for peeking for information. And I felt like that's what LG did a lot. They don't look as structured as a team like Heretics, but the individual skill is huge on some of these players, and the pop-off moments were spectacular. But what impressed me the most was that normally when I think about LG, I think of an upset team. They've always been like, good enough to be able to win maps, maybe win a series off a good team. But the consistency with which they were able to do it over the course of this tournament was unusual. It was unusual. They haven't been able to string together wins like this over good opponents in a row before. And I think part of that comes down to just better fundamentals, like actually better trading for each other, being in a position to support everybody, communicating the angles that everyone's holding and hitting those shots. That to me was what pushed them over the edge. They looked... Normally, Sentinels are an incredible team with that. I think they were lax in this tournament for sure, but LG looked better than Sentinels in terms of their just raw teamwork, which is so weird.
The most apparent example of all of that happening was Icebox, and that was the map that was obviously in hindsight the map that decided a lot of this, because I think it was the closest between these two teams. I mean, in score, but also just in terms of the way it was played. But typically, like, it's a map that a lot of teams don't put too much. I feel like they don't put too much time into trying to really discover some of the nuance of it. It's quite one-dimensional, for lack of a better term, in terms of the way the teams play it. It's like a lot of heavy hits with a lot of your team, maybe a lurking one mid just to essentially prevent the wraparound or lurk and prevent them getting any more information and maybe trying to hunt some of the people who are rotating. But it's pretty one-dimensional in terms of how it's played. But this was a map that really highlighted, I think it was incredibly important for LG as a team as well to just be good when it came to the post-plant situations. Whether they're playing on attack or defense, when they're trying to play the retakes, they were really disciplined on the retakes. Every single time, I felt like. Sentinels, you know what they're going to do on Icebox. You know that they're going to slam utility into A. They're going to try and overwhelm it with Force or Sky utility. But every time LG were ready to come into it with either either equal or a man advantage in most situations because they're just biding their time, waiting it out, and playing the retake properly in terms of their trades and spacing.
I think that was the first time they've played Icebox, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that was
I'll tell you what,
second ever time.
I was dead impressed with them on it because it was the first time we've really seen a team, I think, as the series progressed, they were kind of exploiting a lot of the common stuff that Sentinels like to do. Like Sick a lot of the times as well, when he's playing an Icebox, he will, in some of the rounds, he will just use his dog when he's playing Sky. I don't know what the fuck it's called, the Tasmanian Devil. I don't know.
Trailblazer, I think is the
That's the actual name of it, the Trailblazer?
Yeah.
I'm going to keep calling it the dog. Never getting hired for a Riot event, ever. But he will use it for information down mid. And if he doesn't spot anyone, he will immediately rotate to A. Like, he gains a bit of info, presumably from sound cues, and then decides to rotate to a site off the back of that. And then as the rounds progressed later, LG just began camping 2 people in mid, waiting for the dog, and then punishing him afterwards. Just moving into mid, killing him, and then turning the situation around. It's like little tiny things like that LG were reading upon Sentinel's Icebox game plan, which they haven't been changing. Sentinels haven't been changing their game plan whatsoever on Icebox, and honestly, across a lot of the maps, I feel like Sentinels are kind of playing with the same playbook, which has been their downfall in this tournament.
It absolutely is. I think I said this to you while we were watching, but I think what Dapper said on the show last week, I had that in my mind the whole time, where he was talking about how they don't want to be the reason for their own downfall.
Sure.
They don't want to create the loss for themselves, which I think is very evident in watching them play such a similar game that we've seen for quite a long time now, because it has still been working. I think really up until this point. I think this is the time to adjust for Sentinels. But I do want to go back to Luminosity.
Would you say this is the tipping point then for Sentinels? Like,
I think
this is the point where they sort of go away from like the number one uncontested, or not uncontested, but like their pretty clear number one spot in an A?
No, I'm referring to their gameplay. I'm referring to their style of play. I think that this is going to have to be the point where they start to make adaptations and change.
I think they actually tweeted about that as well, though. They said off the back of this tournament that they had a lot of stuff, like they realized that they threw a bunch of rounds and had some serious problems with what they were doing, and they said that they had a bunch of stuff to work on for Challenger. I hope that the things they work on are not just their mistakes that lost them rounds, because Sentinels as well did make a lot of mistakes that lost them rounds. Like they're just not being coordinated enough, not fast enough to cover each other. Some like they lost a number of 4v2s, I think. They lost like 2-3 of them on Bind, I want to say. Maybe I got the map wrong there, though.
They lost a lot of eco rounds as well.
When
they were going up against
huge amount of eco rounds.
I mean, and I do, a lot of credit to Luminosity individually there for those rounds, because, I mean, aside from the blatant ones where Proto just gets 4 headshots with a Sheriff on a set, which is, that one's pretty dead obvious what happened there. There were so many other rounds where Thief will just sneak his way in with a Sheriff somewhere. Find some random little headshot on some player. He'll have the perfect lurk, and then he just scampers away in the night.
But that's what LG were doing
so many times.
Yeah, all the time throughout the entire tournament. Just these sneaky little pushes where they're forcing you to hold really structured defaults against them to stop them making those wild pushes. And even if you do, they're good enough to be able to get a pick and then, either dismiss away or dash away or whatever the hell else Thief was doing, or they just trade, and when they're on an eco round, it's really successful for them. It's very hard to play against teams like that. And I feel like, as well, kind of contrasting that to, or comparing that to how Heretics won First Strike as well. It feels like a bit of an evolution of the game, honestly. Of like all of the game up to this point has been about, we are going to use utility to favor ourselves in the gunfights. And it only seems like recently now, towards the very end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021, we're starting to see teams that are good enough at deliberately not using util. Like the casters were actually making a joke about like, Thief should use his Leas more often. And it's like, well, if he uses his Lea, then they know where he is. He's deliberately not using his Leas because he wants to get into sneaky positions, get the kill, and get out. They're deliberately not using assets that have been given to them in order to not give alerts to their opponents. It seems to be a new wave of how to play the game that other teams are going to have to adapt to, because it seems like the skill is there at this point to be able to pull it off. I mean, there's teams that are doing it really effectively.
Yeah. I mean, And aside from all that, just the level of individual skill on the team is just outrageous. I mean, it's one of the teams when you're watching, you feel like they can just win any round in any situation.
I was
because you know that they're going to play off each other effectively. Like if there's a 2v4 and it doesn't even. I mean, it's Dre and a Proto. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It feels winnable. I mean, I think there's something to be said as well with the fact that this is a pretty new roster. I mean, they just made the changes a couple of weeks ago.
Dead impressed with Thief over the course of this tournament.
Thief was so good.
In terms of his, not his mechanics. I mean, his mechanics are impressive, but it was his timings and like his understanding of the flow of the game in a round on a round-to-round basis. He found it was kind of akin to most comparable, I guess, player or like play style almost is almost like Sabroso when he's finding openings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like Thief, a lot of the times would just know the perfect time to lurk through a particular area and get a pick and just get out again, like a thief in the night. You know, it was
terrible.
I'm here all week.
I think that's the kind of thing though that they might struggle to consistently do tournament to tournament to tournament.
Sure.
I'm not convinced that LG are going to be able to come back out and like win Challenger or win Masters 1. I think that they look like they've got a shot, but I want to see more from them. Like, I want to see another tournament of them playing at this level, because I think that Sentinels probably go back to the workshop, work on a bunch of like their strats, and if they come out looking less predictable, well, then all of those timings that Thief is using to look so magical, they end up being messed up because he doesn't have as good a read. You know, he's mapping out in his head exactly where the Sentinels players are going to be, or at least the most likely areas, so that he can find those picks. If they start playing a slightly different style in terms of their timings or where people are playing, he then has to adjust on the fly, and that's going to look worse for him, I think. Mm-hmm. So I don't immediately want to say like, oh, well, Luminosity are now the favorites to win Masters or something at the beginning. But I'm feeling good about them moving forward to the future. I want to see more from this team and see if they
aren't your boy Dre and Moose, they were stand-ins, right? They're not under contract currently with LG.
No, they're not signed, but they've been playing with them the past this tournament and the previous.
Dre's been playing longer than Moose, hasn't he?
No, they've been on the team for the equal amount of time.
Right. I mean, either way, it's like hopefully they commit to them. Just give them a contract and commit to them, hopefully. So, because I think this is like a really good roster iteration for them currently. And I think they can definitely get a lot done with this current roster. And Thief's been good for a while. Proto has obviously been good for a while. So I am interested to see how they move forward, because I mean, realistically, they just only have room to grow. I think they only have room to grow because it's always good when you start your base level, like at a tournament like this, is like your fundamentals are really good, and then you grow into a better team versus like, oh, we're just executing like crazy, but our eyes are closed every time a timing or a rotation happens, and then we all die off of contact, right? So I do think that this is like a very good start for LG if they just like commit to this roster.
That's the other thing as well. I feel like there's so much growing room for LG. I think LG themselves made a lot of mistakes, even in the finals performance. Like there were a lot of rounds where you're really wondering why LG are doing things that they're doing, and they end up losing the round because of it. It was a very messy final as well. And that to me is actually a positive thing for LG, because there's such a new roster that I actually think they have like the potential to then improve and grow based off the back of that and tighten some things up. The teamwork is all there, but like for some of the players, like with Moose, for example, the utility usage sometimes when he's in less structured moments, like a 2v2 or a retake or something like that, their gunplay is good and the way that they're playing off everybody is good, but the specific utility usage could be optimized more. Like he can get more value out of it. And that's not one of those situations where you're trying to, not give away where you are. You're literally retaking and they know where your position is. That's the time to get max value out of your utility. That seems to be something that's not quite there.
He moved from CS recently, right?
Very recently.
Moose has moved over fairly recently. Yeah, he played with Orgulus 5 for a little bit and then joined these guys.
He's one of the Chaos guys, right?
I was
was he?
No.
No?
God, who was he with? Triumph, I think.
Oh, right.
I don't know. My brain.
I find it funny when I see some of the comments sometimes like, you can tell these guys don't follow CS sometimes during the podcast, because Our knowledge of where these guys come from sometimes is just, I mean, obviously quite lacking, but well, it's a Valorant podcast, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we have Wyatt for. Wyatt's there to tell us everything about CS.
Yeah.
So,
And the good thing as well is that CS
Counter-Strike profession.
CS success
cool.
hasn't actually mapped very perfectly onto
No,
Valorant.
it absolutely hasn't at all.
So it doesn't end up being that relevant, to be honest.
I think Moose, I just wanted to add quickly, Wyatt, that about Moose as a player as well, considering how recently he moved over from CS. Yeah, I agree with you. Like the utility usage, Josh, could have been better. I felt like in the final series as well, in the grand finals, it was a little bit shaky almost in terms of at times, and you could tell he was being put into these high pressure scenarios, and it was common mistakes. But I think overall as well, whenever he was like in almost a head to head against Shazam on the Sova, for example, he was coming out on top in terms of like. Just, I don't know. It was weird at times. I guess mistakes coming off of Sentinels, but I felt like the amount of times we saw the Sova ult being used from both of the players, but it was always Moose getting the better of it because he just decided to use it first and Shazam thought he could counter ult him. Was off the charts. But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of growing room for Moose as an individual player as well, which is quite exciting, I think, for the overall prospects of this team.
I sort of felt a similar way about Dre. I think his mechanics are insane, and I think he still has a lot of room to grow, which is, as we were saying, it is a positive thing, really. Where I think that he could still optimize his raise utility to an extent. So I think that, I think they have a lot of room to grow. And I think one of the other positive things moving forward is how consistent they've been up until this point in regards to seeing them at their high individual levels. Like, we have seen a Proto and Thief at this level. Maybe this was like even higher than that. But they have been really good for a long time now.
Yeah.
They just haven't had success as a team yet.
Yeah.
Which is also a really positive thing moving forward. I have full confidence that those two guys are going to be ridiculous in every tournament for the future.
Yes.
They have shown no lack of consistency whatsoever. I'm just looking forward to the future of this team. I think they still have a lot of room to grow, an insane amount of mechanical skill, really good team play, and they're goddamn fun to watch.
They're so fun to watch.
They are one of the most fun teams to watch because you just know you're going to see some crazy shit every time.
This is the Sinatraa. Is this a Sinatraa fake? Did it happen in this round?
Oh, maybe. That was a really good play. I mean, that Sinatraa also was playing like a goddamn freak at various points in this
at
tournament.
one point, I can't remember which map it was, but he literally just it was a synth, yeah, and he just split, and he had the most beast mode, insane det pack jump to clutch that round. My god, it was filthy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, was it against NRG?
I think that was against. Yeah, I don't think that was against LG.
No, there was one against LG.
Was there?
No,
there was one against NRG and one against LG.
He actually just straight up alphaed at times. He took his primal male testosterone supplements and jumped in, body hair sprouting from every orifice multiple times. It was actually crazy what he would do.
Yeah, the thing that I would like LG to add to their game, though, as well, is the early round structure of a team like Heretics, where they expend a lot of their utility. Because they're playing so much of a contact-based style a lot of the time, you don't need to save up your utility for the mid-round. You might want to save it for an execute if you're just trying to play really slow and then end on an exec. But early round, it can be really valuable to expend a bunch of that utility, grab areas of the map, like the extremities, and force the other team to retake them. And they have to constantly be worried about you pushing certain areas, etc. Like, like the Heretics defaults where they'll wall showers or they'll wall the garage on bind. Garage on split. And there's a bunch of different places where they do this, where they really aggressively early round take map control. Then they force you to take it back off them, but you're always worried about whether there's someone creeping up on you. And that I think is something that's currently lacking from LG. Like, they don't have that structure to them where they are putting themselves in a winning position at the very beginning of the round. They're kind of relying on themselves hitting the timings in the mid-round to be able to carry them through.
Yeah.
And also a lot of very late site hits as well, where it's the same kind of thing where you can just run the clock on them a bit and wait it out.
Yeah, let's talk about the rest of the tournament as well, because there's a lot of teams in here that we can dive into. The one team that I want to talk about first is NRG, I think, as a team as well, in terms of their general performance, because pretty early on in the groups, they ended up upsetting Sentinels, which was a pretty good map, I felt like, watching it. And the impression I got from NRG as a team in this tournament in particular is that they, at least in this tournament, were definitely punching up towards their opponents.
Yeah.
I think that
they looked all right,
but they were playing to the same level of their opponents at times, right? Did they get knocked out in the end by LG?
Yes.
They did in the playoffs, right?
They did. They got knocked out by LG. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe in hindsight, it's.
I think this was
I
think this was a fantastic tournament for NRG.
I think this showcased a ton of potential for this team overall.
Yeah. They look
I was dead
good.
impressed.
They look so good.
Sure.
I
was dead impressed with Shanks as a player, who typically I've just criticized for just being all aim air in his head. You know,
sure.
But you can see him leveling up in this tournament. I think was a good showcase of him in his individual decision making being a lot better than it has been in recent years.
Recent years.
Yeah,
recent 2 months.
Recent 2 months.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but I think that's just, and you're not wrong. I think that is the benefit of him being on a team.
Yeah, the structure.
For more than 2 days and just having a structure. He's just not running around just dying at the beginning of rounds. I mean, I think that's really the major difference. He's just not dying at the jump. But
it was the little things like smoking against specific walls to adapt to anti-flashes, basically, to just play in positions like that, like the in the moment decision makings that probably doesn't come from structure as much as it does playing the game and thinking about the game more. You know,
sure.
But that's just one instance. Anyway, I didn't mean to take you off your point, Wyatt.
No, it's fine. I mean, if we want to talk, do we want to break down one of the games specifically? Do we want to talk about them against Sentinels?
Yeah, let's talk about the NRG Sentinels game.
That's definitely the most interesting showing, and that's clearly their best game they've had, NRG in Valorant yet. That is a certified fact. Up until that point, they really had not gotten a good win against any notable team. I think that they played pretty goddamn well. I think that more so than them doing anything truly remarkable, I've never seen this NRG team make less mistakes. They looked very competent. They weren't really making errors in this game, which is when you then watch the LG game later, they went back to, they were doing some silly stuff. But in this Sentinels game, they really were not making mistakes. And Sentinels, I think, This is the worst analysis ever, but Sentinels were making mistakes. Specifically, I think on Icebox, I think Sentinels were really getting.
Yeah.
I thought they were really getting exploited, and I think
on
weird. Split, I felt like they were just comprehensively beaten. I actually one of the things I really liked about the NRG roster in this was I liked Daps on Brim.
Oh, Daps on Brim, yes.
Daps
on a lot. So that is the way.
I feel like we felt the impact, by the way, of these Omen and Brimstone changes a lot. I actually don't know if the Omen changes were that impactful compared to what we were last week, where I said, like, yeah, I feel like Omen might be a little bit less used because it's going to be harder to like really fast pop execute now off the smokes. I don't feel like this changes were that severe with his smokes in terms of how teams are using them. But for Brimstone, I mean, especially the stim pack and how it affects like the assists. There was one game, I think it was the final game on on Split. Daps went 9, 18, and 25.
He had 25 assists.
Yeah.
25 assists. And then he had another game versus LG where like it wasn't as crazy, but he just had a good game, but he had 19 assists.
Is he playing frisbee golf with the stim packs?
I think you get assists. You get them from the stim packs, but I also think you get it from blocking line of sight with smokes.
No, it wasn't only from stim packs, but it's just funny to me because it's just like that stat line was so ridiculous.
You can get assists from smokes as well.
How?
I don't know. You just can.
Okay.
I mean,
I don't know enough to. Yeah, I don't know enough to dispute.
Like blocking. I think if you block line of sight and kill somebody in the smoke, it counts as an assist. I think.
Oh, okay. That is insane, but.
I really like this Brim play though. He was getting. I thought his specifically. I thought his ults were all really good. He had some really intelligent ult usage. Just clearing out areas of the map, making it easier on attack for specifically like on Icebox, just dropping the alt on B. I don't know what the calls for Icebox are, but like pushing into B to just cut off angles and make the push easier.
Yeah.
They had some intelligent Brim usage. I was really enjoying that a lot.
Brim on Icebox I like a lot.
Yeah,
I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of the way teams play it. Like where they... Are you smiling?
I'm smiling because you're gonna have to be more descriptive.
Yeah, I was about to explain it. You started smiling.
I was just smiling, mate. I'm just smiling. I'm a happy chap.
I like it because the game plan for a lot. I don't want to derail Wyatt's point though. That's the thing as well.
No, it's fine. Okay. It's fine.
All right,
we're off the rails.
It doesn't sound like it's fine though when you say it like that.
I think a lot of the game plan for teams on Icebox is like playing the post plants on A, and Brimstone kind of honestly just fucks with it a lot. It's a lot of delaying with the Molotov, and we saw that from NRG when they were running the Killjoy and the Brim. The Molotov delays, like when they were playing post plants or even in the retakes to deny the push into A when they knew it was coming, was really effective. That's why I like Brimstone.
Yeah. I think NRG is the kind of team as well. It's something we said on previous podcasts too, where they just need to find their style and stick to it for a while. And I think this is pretty successful. I like the iteration with Daps on Brim and Infinite on Killjoy more than I like the other way around. But I think part of the reason that these teams are making swaps with, like Leaf plays the Killjoy, but then he plays the Omen, and Infinite plays the Killjoy, but then he plays the Brim or whatever, is mainly because they like playing Killjoy, but not Cypher. It seems like a lot of these newer players that are coming in don't play the Cypher very often. They're just playing Killjoy. Yeah. So
I suppose that is true.
I don't know what the reasoning is behind that, but I think NRG looked better when they had Daps on the Brim. I like that iteration of the team more. I don't know how feasible it is because I don't know whether Infinite really does play like Cypher. Can he play all the Sentinels for them? But if that's a possible move for them going forwards, I like that look for NRG. They look good.
I 100% agree. I think that Infinite has been a standout player for the team as well. He's had some very clutch rounds, very crucial rounds, especially in that last split game.
He settled into Valorant pretty quickly, all things considered. I think he settled into Valorant pretty quickly after moving.
Yeah. Similar to Leaf.
Yeah.
They both looked really good.
The one thing I'll say about Infinite as well is I think a lot of people look at his general statistics and think, well, this guy's pretty wank at the game. But the kills that he's getting in the games are impactful. Like he's one of those prime examples, actually, of a player that you can't really judge from the VLRGG page. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like you have to actually watch the games themselves, and the kills that he's getting are usually just almost round winning in some of the circumstances, in a lot of the circumstances.
Yeah, he looks pretty good. This NRG team, I'm feeling relatively positive about them for the future. Like if they can keep up this kind of performance, they look all right.
Yeah, I think that the level of play we saw in that Sentinels game, that has been their peak so far. But I think that that's a reasonable place for them to end up on a fairly consistent basis, if not just a consistent basis. I do also feel, though, that in that game, I think Sentinels played pretty.
I think they shot the bed. Yeah.
I mean, I
think this whole tournament was pretty bad from them, actually.
I think that game was possibly the worst Sentinels game I've ever seen. Really, on all accounts, it was the highlight. It was the perfect example of how they essentially haven't changed to some extent. They were pretty much they were doing the same things we've seen. I think their Icebox was really predictable. They really need to revamp their Icebox, I think, generally. It was so straightforward. It was lackluster, just running into A, trying to dump utility, but not really gaining any significant control of the site. I really was not a fan of their play on this map. And I think individually, too, they were just all over the place. They were just going for wild plays that were just nonsensical. They couldn't have gotten any support from teammates. They just looked really lost in this game for some reason. I think specifically on Icebox, this was the worst of the maps for them, honestly. Even though in Split, I think they got more comprehensively beaten. But I think that was NRG's best performing map.
Well, also, that was where Sick was running Sky on Split against NRG, which he didn't do in later maps as well. And just all of this together has exposed a lot of weaknesses for Sentinels in this tournament. Now, I'm not going to say that those are going to be long-standing weaknesses. I think Sentinels can fix most of them pretty quickly. But at the moment, Sentinels are looking shaky in a bunch of areas that they've never looked shaky at before. Like, for example, map pool. Sentinels map pool has always been rock solid. Like, ever since they tightened up their Haven in like
midsummer,
July or something, maybe it was August, they've had rock solid map pool the whole time. In First Strike, you really saw that their bind and their ascent they weren't comfortable on at all, especially after the Sage nerfs. And I think really the Sage nerfs are what did it. They have slowly just lost more and more of their map pool to the point where now they only look good on Haven. And Split, you could say, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
But their Split is getting pretty hardcore exposed. Their bind defense is pretty horrible. Their Ascent gameplay in general is a bit wishy-washy, but it's all right. Their Haven is good all round. And their Icebox is just incredibly one-dimensional. They are missing large components of what made them good in the past. And I think most of it is coming down to the fact that they just don't have a vision for what they want Sick to play. Like I saw a thread on Reddit about Sick being incredible because he was playing 5 different roles in the grand final. Sick is incredible and he's a world-class player, but that's not a good thing for a team to be dabbling in so many different styles, of which none of them look concrete excellence. They're just throwing shit at a wall at this point.
I mean, he played 5 roles because mid-tournament they felt that the Sky was no longer working, so they just switched back to Sage, which then in later maps made Shazam look not very good because suddenly he was lacking the support.
You can really tell.
So there are clear. There are things that are going to change within the overall composition and the way that the team is playing and the way that certain players are going to be able to perform if you just suddenly switch out the agent with 3 flashes for a Sage. I mean, it directly and immediately affected Shazam on the later maps. They just have a lot to work. I think they just need to hit the drawing board on basically everything. It is odd that Haven is like their last stand map
because it's the only one where they've kept the same structure as when they were winning. All of the other maps, they've changed something. Other than Split, where they've gone back to running Sick on the Sage. But other than that map, every other map, they've had to change something. And it's not like Sick is playing poorly, but none of their strats implement Sick on whatever agent he's playing. Like, what kind of good plays do they have on, like, Ascent, for example, where they really implement his play on the breach? Or like what great moves do they have on Icebox where they really work around the Sky? He's not syncing up with the rest of the team because they haven't put the thought into how that should happen. And I think this is like a problem with Sentinels that's structural, I think, is that they are just kind of winging it at the moment until they get beaten. But you need to recognize that now, I think. Like, now is the time to recognize that some of your stuff is really slipping, and you need.
They're just a legacy cable company at this point. They've been at the top for so long, and that they don't realize that the world is changing around them, and they're there in their executive offices just banging. It's like, what do we do? It's like, well, we got to put more. We gotta just try something different. So we're gonna bundle our internet and our cable. But then everyone's like, well, I don't like that. And that's pretty much where they're at here with, like, I feel like that's where they're at because legitimate, and you see it happen with like all teams go in a cycle at times, like where they'll be at the top of their game for a while. Sentinels was definitely that. They were innovative for their time, and then everyone started to catch up a bit. You fall behind in your practice, or maybe you just don't feel like you need to push the boundaries as much, or you can just like throw shit at the wall and it'll work because you own all the local regional cable monopolies, and and so I do think that this is where Sentinels currently stands, like, because it's just repeated over and over for so many teams throughout any game, where you get to the top and someone beats you, and then you have to go back to the drawing board. But the thing about Sentinels is that if they recognize early, I think they're gonna be okay. You just have to be really proactive, and you just need to stop putting late fees and renting out your cable boxes for extra money.
Somebody asked me in my chat during the finals, they were like, do you think that these issues derive from them having a lack of coaching staff? And on the one hand, I was like inclined to agree, but on the other hand, we've seen these same issues plague teams with coaching staff.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, this isn't something that's exclusive for teams.
It's not a magical fix.
Exactly, it's not a magical fix. You still need good structure in the first place. So them getting coaches wouldn't necessarily solve this problem, because I know it's something that a lot of people are going to be thinking about. But it is something that can be fixed if you think about it early enough and catch it early enough, which is probably the purpose of them even entering this tournament in the first place.
That's what, yes, I think so. I think that they probably go into this because they didn't get a good test in First Strike. They had all of these problems with their lack of practice that meant they couldn't really turn up to the tournament properly. And then they played in JBL, all right, but you need more before you go into the first major of 2021. You need more match experience to see where your flaws are. And I think they pretty concretely can take away some direct feedback to improve themselves for the next tournament. I think they can. I'm not saying that this is a disastrous situation for Sentinels. I think they can absolutely come back and win the next tournament, but they need to make some serious, not moves, but they need to put a lot more direct conscious thought into their game plan and what role is Sick playing? How do we integrate that? What is our plan for how we're playing? If we're playing against a contact team like LG, what kind of trap plays do we have where them walking into an area sets off some kind of play where we can punish them? Like what's the game plan, and what kind of stuff do we have in our playbook to fall back on?
Yeah, I think they're going to look back on this tournament and be glad that they entered it and lost, because I do suspect that they're going to change fairly significantly for challengers in the next few weeks. I think that we're going to see a fairly different Sentinels, different than we've seen in the past. It does feel like they really just wanted to run this old strat book until the wheels fell off, and they have. And I think that they recognize that and are going to change things. Yeah. I do think one of the things that's odd with their team, I find it is Shazam's roles, because he can do so much. And on Jet, he's looked really good.
Oh, this was the play.
Yeah, this was
oh my god,
it's so fucking nasty.
But they are doing, they're running these comps with Sick on Breach, where he's playing it on Ascent, and I don't think it's really necessarily worked. I think they could probably run a Breach on Split, because Breach is very good on Split as well. And Shazam was, when he was playing Breach, possibly the best Breach in NA at the time. And at the moment, he's pretty much just playing Jet exclusively, aside from Sova on whatever, one map or two maps. But I think that maybe they wanted to experiment with throwing him on the Breach, because when he was on Breach on Ascent, that was when they were at their best. And I wouldn't be mad at them potentially experimenting with him on Breach on Split as well. I think Sick has had a lot of success on Duelist. Him on Phoenix has been really good.
I also wouldn't be mad if they wanted to try and put Sinatra on the Sova for some of those maps, keep Shazam on Jet, and move Sick over to a Duelist role, where they ignore the Breach, but instead they have their two Duelists instead of it being Sinatra. Like, for example, I'm thinking of Bind, for example. If they want to run like a Jet Raze instead of the Phoenix Raze, it seems sacrilegious to suggest not running the Sinatra Phoenix on Bind. But the attack is still really potent for them. But their defense is so lackluster. They just don't do anything on the defense when it comes to Bind. And I think they have such a flexible roster. There's so many different options available to them if they actually want to mix things up, because their players can all play everything.
Yeah. Are there any other, outside of NRG and Sentinels here, were there any other major teams that I'm forgetting?
Envy.
Envy's,
because the thing that we set up for Envy last week was, if Envy don't make the finals, it's a massive, massive disappointment for them. The beginning of the downward spiral, or rather the downward spiral continues. That ended up not being the case, at least in my opinion, because they hit Sentinels in the quarters, which is like the worst way that this bracket could have gone, because Sentinels got upset by NRG. So Envy actually played pretty well. I was impressed by Envy's performance against Sentinels. I thought that I like the fact that Mummy is now sticking on Jet full time. You know, when it came to Bind, that was previously a map where Mummy was playing the Omen and they had food swap over to the Duelists. I like this role. I think that Crashies was getting a large amount of value. Even the Sky was doing pretty well. I like the direction from Envy, and I feel like their individual play, they didn't just roll over and flail their legs in the air like a turtle when they played against Sentinels, which has been the case in the past.
They look
unfortunately,
fine. I think
we didn't get to see the consistently we didn't get to see them consistently beat a bunch of tier 2 teams, though, which is what I was hoping from this tournament, that I would come away thinking, no, it's all good. Envy's got it in the bag. Because they lost, but they lost well.
Yeah.
And they only beat 2 of the tier 2 teams. So
no, granted, one of them was Xset, and I actually think Xset might be currently the best tier 2 team if we're excluding LG since they're on the rise. Like Xset,
they won the last tournament, right?
I mean, they also Xset beat LG in groups 2-0 and then lost to them 1-2 in the lower bracket final of that group.
I think that's, even though they didn't get to play a lot of tier 2 teams, I think not losing to Xset was a pretty good indicator for where like Envy's project, like they didn't look awful in the tournament because of that. Like we didn't have to get as many data points because that was a really big point. That was like a globe of a point, a globe data. You know?
I thought it was pretty good from Envy. Like I was impressed with what I saw, because most of the time when Envy lose, they beat themselves. They just flop. And they didn't do that at any point in this tournament. And I think as long as they can maintain that when they come into Challengers and Masters, they'll have a good shot at being able to go deep.
Yeah, I thought that it was a pretty solid showing overall. I think that even in that Sentinels game, specifically on the first map, I think that they were just off individually. And then once they got into the swing of things on the next 2 maps, those were some of the best maps they've ever had against Sentinels.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, I'm feeling okay about them going forward at this point. I think that solving some of the roles, I think, is definitely a big help. I liked seeing Mummy on Jet full-time. Mummy's very good on that role, and I think Food looks comfortable on Smokes as well. I think that those are just the optimal roles for those players, and staking them on those roles full-time is definitely a good move.
They seemed like they struggled a little bit with the thing that I really associate with Envy is incredible defensive aggression, like really being unafraid to push out. Where, for example, on Ascent, Food will push out the B garage area or the B main area, and he'll just kind of clear that. And I felt like that wasn't as present in this tournament, possibly because Food and Caboose aren't playing the double duelists as much anymore, and it's now on Mummy, and they're playing a bit more of a conserved style. But that might be a good adaptation too, because I think that was already getting figured out by the top teams of like, okay, they're going to push us here, so let's just hold, wait for them, punish them. Okay, continue.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, overall, I think, okay with them moving forward. They have stopped the downward trajectory that they were on, and they're looking pretty solid overall. So I'm okay with them in this. One of the teams I did want to talk about as well, if you're okay with moving on from Envy, I did want to touch on Anbox, because they did come in third. I think they had a pretty good showing. And one of my major takeaways with Anbox earlier on in the tournament, watching them play against teams like Built by Gamers, who've kind of been on the rise, Anbox are so much better as an actual team. They are so much more well thought out than all of the other teams in that tier.
Yeah,
that when you watch them win, they make you question, like, how do they ever lose to these teams? Because they are genuinely so much better as a team. Their actual setups are excellent. They have their own unique executes that they're only there doing.
Yeah.
Their team play really in all, in like post plants, etc. They're effective at trading. They have good team play with each other. When you watch them win, it's like, oh, these guys are just really good. They're an excellent team. But then they'll still just get these upset losses against, at least in some of the previous tournaments, just these random losses to tier 2 teams, which when you watch them win, it's like, how does this happen?
They're one of the best tactical teams that we have in North America, actually, Anbox, I think. They
also bust out the Viper, and I love that too. I love seeing the Viper gameplay on Icebox from Coach. Also, legitimately, I actually like watching Viper gameplay. So yeah,
the Viper gameplay on Split is something that they, I don't want to say pioneered, because Mambo Mode Gaming with We Did were doing it before they did, I think, but Anbox definitely brought it towards the tier 1 level when they won the NSG tournament that they ended up winning. And at the time, it was very effective. And then they ended up getting beaten a couple of times. And what I noticed when they were playing against Cloud9 Anbox is that they had made significant tactical improvements to the Viper on Split, which is something that other teams have, like, if you contrast that to Sentinels have, like you said, been running that playbook until the wheels fell off, whereas Anbox have taken the time which perhaps you could say they had to because they weren't actually winning. But they've taken the time to actually improve the strategies that they already had. So they were already a strategically and tactically very good team, and they've continued to develop that and get better and better. I don't know if you can find it, but the game Andbox against Cloud9 on Split, round 21 was wonderful. I made a note of it because it's so different to any of the other North American teams whenever they've played Viper. The wall went into B, and he had the smoke at the entrance of B main, and then a wall coming through, and it just allows you to directly lurk through. And it means that they have to cement 2 players into B to make sure you're not lurking through there. It reminded me of what Safe did when he played for... what was that team even called? Bonk back then. He used to do the same kind of walls into B just to mess with people. And the way that they do that, also, he did that when his team were attacking A. It was a fake play too. So just the layers of it was so good from Andbox.
They would mix it up as well though with these just sudden pop hits. Where they would just send in the breach flash and then Android would just be double satcheling through. It was their play is very tactical. It's very entertaining to watch in that respect. They're doing very similar things on Icebox as well.
Yeah, they're a really good team.
They
tactically,
really are.
But they just, when you compare them to teams like Sentinels and LG, for example, who finished ahead of them this time, they don't play at as high a tempo in the mid rounds, generally speaking. As I suppose LG don't either. They tend to be quite a slow team, but they're good at being able to react to what Sentinels do. And I think that Andbox is like, they don't spring into action to help their teammates as much. Look at this as well. Yeah, he just lurks all the way through, and the casters are so confused. But that smoke combined with the wall cuts off all of the angles for where you can really hold. You have to hold on rafters watching from there the whole time. So you have to come up with a hold for B split that can hold heaven if they come there, but can also keep an eye on Poach just lurking through the smokes. It is so difficult to be able to come up with a strat that effectively deals with that on the defense. And I love that Andbox have continued to develop this style instead of just continuing to run it repeatedly.
Yeah, they're innovating as well. It's just you're seeing original ideas, which is it's cool. They're one of the only teams really in NA that are just developing their own tactics in this way. But I think this was a good showing for them overall. I'm satisfied with this showing. I've been hoping for many tournaments because I think that they're one of the more interesting teams in NA. I want to kind of see them succeed because I want to see them against the higher level teams. Like I want to see this stuff ran against higher level competition. But I think this was a good showing for them. This was really the first time in a couple tournaments where I felt, really outplayed some of the teams that you would have considered around their level previous to this, like BBG. When you watch them play against Built by Gamers, and if you're comparing those two teams, like the level of tactical play is just, it's worlds apart.
Well, they're just inverse. I feel like they're just inverse LG. Like I feel like that's the sort of the opposite conundrum where LG is like looking to be increasingly good fundamentally with just like post plan and retakes and playing contact, but like they're pretty simple and slow with how they do executes and how they set up like map control. Well, I feel like Andbox has always been consistently a little bit more on the tactical end, but definitely a lot worse on the fundamentals.
Yeah, I
feel like that's where they need to like grow. And that's a harder part to grow though, is the thing. It's a lot harder to grow upwards. Like if you have no roots, it's a lot harder to grow up versus if you are a very, very short bush, but you have very strong, girthy roots than to grow upwards, you know? Like I feel like that's sort of an issue with Andbox moving forward, hopefully that they could fix.
Yeah, Andbox are the thinking man's team, but as any nerd at middle school knows, thinking men don't always win.
Wow. Josh Blackpilled confirmed.
Oh, God. And I will say, sort of my last thing about them as well. I was very impressed with Ye in this tournament. I think that he.
Oh yeah, Ye was good.
He's some potential there. He's got something.
Yeah,
so I'm looking forward to seeing them continue. I hope they continue to improve.
Overall, though, I think I was just impressed at the level of play and how it's stepped up. I think across tier 2 as well.
The tier 2 teams look good.
Yeah, they do look. They look really good. I mean, it means that we're going to be going into the Challenger series at the start of or the end of January.
Yeah, it's like
February?
very beginning of February for NA. I think it's the
Yeah.
4th of February.
All the
for
other
NA.
regions start first.
It's
and
going to
then
be
NA
super
starts
interesting, though,
right
I
after.
think.
That's because of time zones, though, Avast.
Yeah. I know. But technically, they do chronologically start a little bit later.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be really interesting. We can move on away from the Nursery Gamer Winter Championship review, and instead we can talk about the Brimstone and Omen changes, just briefly, I suppose. We kind of already touched on them a little bit, and we've already started to see teams experimenting with the Brimstone, incorporating it a lot more. I think. They even some hidden buffs that they didn't talk about with Brimstone is that now his iPad noises apparently don't make noise.
Yeah.
So you can, do stuff and people won't be able to hear it. But across the board, I mean, all of these buffs were just so. It's quite a lot, It's quite a lot.
The smokes last for eons.
Yeah, they really do.
20 seconds almost.
Yeah. It is a long time.
I was saying to Wyatt in the kitchen, I was theorizing some rank strategies.
Okay.
Here we go.
Picture this, okay? You're on
Here
an
we go.
eco, okay? You're
Yeah.
like, oh, fuck, Haven. You're on attack.
Wait, you've just realized you're in an eco round, but you've just realized it's Haven.
No, it's Haven.
Sorry, I'm trying to put myself in the mindset.
It's an eco round. Maybe I should have started with Haven. You're loading in.
Yep.
It's attack.
Yep.
Maybe this is just a pistol round, actually. Who knows? Okay?
Yeah, pistol
You're running
round.
a weird comp. You're on Brimstone. You're
Okay.
saying, lads, listen to this. Lurk one in mid so that they can't push through mid or push through A. Okay? Maybe set up like a turret or like
Wait,
I
why
don't know.
can't they
Maybe
push through A if we have one in mid?
or just set up something so that they basically have somebody hanging back.
Right.
So that they can't really push through
A
doors
Killjoy
or
sat
A.
in Killjoy sat in mid with the
like
turret and guard.
Killjoy or something,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, exactly. So you got your extremities covered. Lads, gather up. You smoke at the top of Long C. Okay. So they're like, oh fuck, what are they doing? Like, what could they be doing here?
Now the defender of C immediately starts spamming ghost shots down C at this point.
Presumably.
Yeah.
But you wait that out because the smoke is long. Okay. You've got enough smoke, so they don't have enough ammunition.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And you wait even longer. And
you waiting
slowly.
inside? Where are you waiting?
You're just outside.
Oh,
like
right.
around the corner.
Around the corner. Right.
But then you're slowly walking in. Okay. You're walking up Long.
Okay.
You lay down another smoke because 19.25
Oh, they
seconds.
see another smoke go down, so they start shooting again.
No, they don't because they're running out of ammo.
Right. At this point, it's like a castle siege. Their stores are running out. They can only last so long.
Exactly. At this point, they're getting antsy and they're starting to push some other areas. But your
They
Killjoys
put the molly
already...
down in the smoke.
No, they don't do that because they're not running a Brimstone or a Killjoy.
Oh, I see. Phoenix.
No, they're not running a Phoenix.
No?
Never see that on
Viper.
Haven.
No.
Viper throws it.
No,
down.
no, they're not running any of those.
Oh, so they're not playing Valorant. They're not playing any agents. No agents
Okay,
are
hear
being
me out. All four of you wait in the smoke.
Okay.
19.25 seconds have passed. 38.5 seconds have passed.
Go on. What's this one?
For
Oh,
57.2, 57.75.
That's money.
Are people crawling through smokes?
57.75 seconds have passed.
Yeah.
4 members of your team waiting in the smoke. 2 of them have already died on the extremity when they're pushing the Killjoy player. But they're like,
already got a 2K.
where
Killed
could
them with boredom.
Where could they be? Where could they be? Where could they be? The smoke fades. The stimpact is already placed. They can't see it. It makes no noise. Brimstone's not making any noise anymore. He makes no noises. He's fucking silent. In the smoke, your team bursts out onto Seaside. Bap, 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 bap. Headshots running wild. Your Sky is holding down the heal as your team are running through the choke. Your Sky is just holding it, healing everybody on the pistol round. You're fucking firing at 1,000,000 miles per hour because your Stimpack beacon is allowing you to fire faster, and you take C and you win the round.
God.
I want to do that in a ranked game.
I mean, you could even double it up with Omen and just go at like 10 seconds left.
Yeah, I want to do
literally
this
the
shit
entirety of
in
the
a ranked
round.
game. I'm not gonna lie. You can fucking stall this shit out. I want to try it.
Couldn't you have just achieved a similar result by just playing really slow and having 2 people mid lurk anyways and get the
And
kills?
just
Like, isn't
finish
it the
C?
exact same result, but the only difference is
No.
now you're in C when the smoke fades?
I like this because you're denying information.
What I love is that it relies on your Killjoy being a freak.
Yeah. I mean,
She's getting pushed from garage, from A main, from mid, and she's just a whirlwind.
Assuming she plays unorthodox angles, it's fine.
Yeah.
She should get the kill.
All right. Well, let's try it in our next rank game.
You're going to stream tomorrow, aren't you?
Yeah, but I'm going to be on Kurt's PC, so I'm not going to play Valorant.
Why not?
Because I'm on Kurt's PC. I'm not going to. I
can install it for you.
You need your own. Okay, well, I'm not going to get into that. But anyway,
his home setup.
those are just some of the plays you can make with the Brimstone changes. And I think we saw the impact of it in the Nerd Street Gamer tournament as well. A lot of teams tending towards
a lot of teams running that strat that you just said.
Yeah. But okay. So outside of the extremities of my strategic mind. Okay, this is like the inner workings of my mind in terms of if I was a coach, this is what we need to be doing, boys.
God, that team would be amazing.
We saw a lot of usage of Brimstone, and I liked it because you can tell that teams have not put much time into Icebox and learning it as a map, in really developing it strategically. And a lot of the strategy of it comes down to, can we play the post plants effectively on A?
Yeah.
Can we just delay and buy time? But the introduction of Brimstone with the Molotov reduction in price, we saw teams like NRG was the best example of it, where they were stacking the Molotovs, delaying the push attempt into A as well. Like a lot of the push attempts were just being completely delayed to the point where the entire advantage you have as an attacker is essentially just trying to hit a site hard and fast and getting there before the rotations come, because it's so wide. And that entire advantage was being negated just from the fact that they were able to delay it with utility. That was one example, the most extreme and evident example. But outside of that as well, he does seem like he is just a really good choice now.
Yeah, the moments that struck me were, for example, when teams were hitting bind B and you place the smoke at CT and you have one at elbow, boom, boom, they go down.
Yeah.
And normally by the time the guys on A have rotated in, the smoke's about to fade. You know, you would have an Omen smoke there, it's about to dissipate, you're able to entry. These guys were having to wait in CT for an extra 5-6 seconds while the spike is planted before they can get through the smoke. That it felt weird to me. It felt like as well, if I put my tinfoil hat back on, that people might end up playing more Phoenix to just flash through them in order to get back in to retake, because you simply cannot afford the time to wait out the smoke. If there's a smoke at CT on bind B, you have to push through it at some point, because you can't just wait out like let's say it's even just 10 seconds. You can't wait an extra 10 seconds at CT waiting for it to go in, and it's not hollow. You don't exactly know what's on the other side. It's difficult to be able to push through it. So I think it's going to be a challenge for teams to push through, but I don't think it's immediately pushed Brim to like must-play territory by any means.
No, I think that at least, obviously, it's very early with the changes, so we'll see how it plays out moving forward. But I think at the moment, it felt like there was a healthy balance in this tournament, which is not something we've seen in the smoke roll in eons.
Yeah.
Or maybe ever. Have we ever seen a healthy balance?
When Omen was first introduced with this new flash, I feel like people were playing it a little bit 50-50.
Yeah, maybe at like the very beginning. But it's a fairly healthy balance, I think, throughout the tournament. And I think what was nice to see as well was that these nerfs definitely did not really kill. I mean, they certainly didn't kill Omen.
No.
But they didn't ruin Omen. They didn't hard nerf Omen. It affected Omen.
It's too early to tell, though, isn't it?
That's what I'm saying. We'll see as time goes on. But in this tournament, there was a healthy balance. And more than anything, still, Paranoia, even at 4, they could make Paranoia $2,000. It is still ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. I remember I was losing my mind over this one Paranoia that LG did against Sentinels on Ascent towards the very end. But it's in those moments where they were executing onto A. They just sent the perfect Paranoia that hit Shazam, who was playing a generator, and Sinatra was on Catwalk, and just full blinded both of them, and they just execute easy kill on Shazam. Yeah. It's like that ability is so goddamn good.
It's crazy.
It is so good.
Yeah.
You blinded two players who aren't really, I mean, I guess they're not really close to each other, but like the two crucial positions to execute onto a site, you just full blind you essentially negate the two players' existence on the map.
Yeah,
it is such a good ability.
there's no
man.
And also, you can do it with,
so
There's
good.
no risk to yourself. You can do it from the essentially the other side of a wall. You have no risk.
Yeah, you
with
do
yourself
it
when you
from-
set up the blind.
Do it from A main. It's so good.
Yeah,
it
you
is
can't-
so
yeah.
powerful.
I've
So-
been calling for nerfs for a long time. I actually think they should also reduce the depth, what do you call it, like
Width.
diameter of it, width, a little bit, because
But,
it's wild.
I'm okay with right now seeing how it plays out with these two, because I think also Brim's viability being at a better place will also inherently kind of just
It will.
nerf Omen. Not directly, but it'll
little
reduce his play a little bit. So I'm so far I like the changes. Still need a little more time to sit with them, but so far I like it.
I wonder if it brings Sova back to like a 100% perma run all the time, depending on how Brim works out. Because if you can't do anything about the fact that the smokes are so long, you have to just like get a lot more info outside of the smokes. And I feel like the only agent that is really amazing at that is Sova still, because you can just send drones and recon darts out through that.
Sure.
So I do wonder if Sova like comes back to like 100% perma pick if Brimstone suddenly becomes like the meta smoke.
Yeah. I mean, Sova really is like 100% except on Split and Icebox.
And even
Yeah,
then,
I'm saying like literally all the time, even when because
Yeah.
we saw some teams moving away from Sova occasionally. It's just back to like
Yeah,
you're
like
always back on
C9
Sova again.
on Ascent, for example.
you're about to make me go on a Sova Icebox tangent, but I actually think Sova's really good on Icebox,
Yeah.
and teams aren't even because NRG. One of the reasons they were really good on it, retaking NRG having the Sova being able to drone out the 900 hiding spots on the site was super effective. They were getting mega value from EU. Also, EU is really good. We didn't
EU is
mention
very
that
good,
earlier,
yeah.
but EU is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Cool. I got nothing else to add.
Yeah, I mean,
Move us along then.
Topic. Do you want to move on to the next
what's
topic?
the old next topic, huh?
Next topic is how deep is the talent pool in NA? Pretty deep. In fact, there's a topic we're gonna get on later as well with the kind of the dissolving of the Moon Raccoons. But yeah, it's there's a lot of talent currently in North America that is just sitting there, and especially on these tier 2 teams. I mean, I think we've got them as separate topics, but it feels apt to talk about this here. Was it Tex you wanted to talk about with this topic, or was that a separate one?
Well, I just wanted to talk about some general standout players from the tournament
Sure.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the
list. I mean, for real, I just have a list of like 20 names. It's ridiculous, man.
The depth of the talent pool in NA has definitely developed recently as well. When we were looking at First Strike, I would say that the tier 2 teams in EU were significantly tactically better than NA, and I still think that's the case to some extent. Except for teams like Andbox, for example, but they've just focused on different things. The North American teams have really focused on playing a looser, more default-based style that's around a lot of adapting to your opponent and having good fundamentals and good kind of synergy with them, so that you can trade off them. And the gunplay is what they've really focused on. And I think that in that sense, the level of tier 2 North American play seems to be at a pretty good point right now.
Mm-hmm.
They seem like they could beat a couple of the tier. I mean, we already saw it with LG beating Sentinels, but you could see that happening. Maybe not across the board, but there's a bunch of tier 2 teams that could really punch up above their weight. Especially when you consider there's a bunch of teams that weren't even in this tournament. There's your TSMs, your 100 Thieves, but then there's also T1, you've got FaZe, Immortals, I'm sure there's a bunch of other teams as well, I just can't remember them off the top of my head. But there's a bunch of other like in-between tier 1.5 teams that look like they would struggle against some of these teams.
Yeah, the talent level in NA is outrageous at this point, and I think you have to give a lot of credit for that to the NA ecosystem. There is an actual NA tier 2 vibrant, alive ecosystem where these players have gotten to play tournaments pretty consistently since the dawn of the game. And I think that is, you're seeing the payoff of that right now, where the talent pool is just outrageous. Like something I said last week, and after watching this, I think is so true. Like if Envy just fell apart in this tournament, let's say, and they were like, oh, holy shit, we need to make some moves. We need to get a new duelist. I mean, there's 97 players that they could pick up. It's outrageous how many good players there are right now. And I think that you just have to credit that to the NA having such a better ecosystem than some of the other regions for the tier 2 scene. They've just had these players have so much tournament experience, and it's very, very valuable. And aside from that, at this point, it's just like every tournament we watch, there's just a new player coming out of nowhere. I mean, you wanted to talk about Tex. I know that.
Absolutely.
And I mean,
Tex is so good.
I mentioned last week that he was looking like a freak, and he is so good and so consistent. I mean, it's been 2 tournaments so far that we've really seen him in, but he's top fragging like 90% of the games. I mean, it's just out of control. And before that, if you go back to look at what he's done, he was playing Sova on Mamba mode, and like I can't remember the team before that, but he never was really a standout. I never really noticed him before. And if you go by statistics, it was nothing really out of control. And I mean, it's just some combination of massive improvement, but also maybe being on the right role. He's just an insane player. I mean, I'm sure he's already gotten 17 contracts emailed to him at this point. I don't know if I mean, look, Equinox.
Is Equinox a real? Is that an org, like an actual?
It is an org. It's a new org. Yeah, it's a new org. But I mean, dude, I feel I don't know if Equinox are going to be able to compete with whoever's sending him the check, because they unfortunately, I think they kind of put him on the map, and he's just going to get taken away unless as the player he really likes playing with Equinox and they like the 5 that they have and he wants to stick with them for the sake of sticking with that team. But I mean, I think Dignitas sent him a contract while he was still playing in the tournament. So I genuinely think Dignitas already reached out to him.
You think with Odorous
absolutely. I think they're like, yep, sorry, Odorous.
What is that crosshair?
I mean, Tex was.
Is
that critical?
Yeah, it's critical.
Why is critical using that ridiculous crosshair?
I don't know. I think he's just trying to. I think he's embracing.
It's the B-52 bomber crosshair. That way you never miss. So it's really big stuff there.
I think he's trying to like embrace some sort of meme status. Where he's like, I'm like the cheater, and I got like a wacky crosshair.
I mean,
and I'm also really good. He's on my list.
It's an absurd crosshair. You can't see things through it.
Yeah,
no,
you can't.
What? How does he even aim with that? I don't know. Yeah, Tex looked phenomenal though. I was really impressed by him. I think he'd make a fantastic addition to Dignitas, but he also was a great addition to Equinox too. The thing is though, he reminds me of one of those players that is powered by confidence and hitting his shots. He does have great utility usage, but or at least good utility usage, but the majority of the times where I was impressed by him was where he was facing, peaking, and hitting wacky good shots. And that is the kind of thing that can go down with time, or down based on the opponent that you're playing against, or down on another team.
Shot Up.
Sure, where he was just
like honeymoon period where he was hitting everything on Reyna.
He was just challenging and ripping heads off. Yeah, because there wasn't that same level of, I don't know, fundamental great game sense, a lot of the pop-off moments were him almost like over-challenging and going for every single 1v1 and then just hitting unbelievable shots. I don't know if you guys can remember, but there was the one on Split where he's holding ropes. 2 players drop into him. He kills 2 and tries to go up the rope. Beefs running up the rope and decides to just 180 and kill another one. And it's like, how on earth do you get 3 from that position? It is unbelievable. But he seems like the kind of player though that it's a bit like LG. I want to see more before I am convinced that he's going to be great at the top level forever.
Yeah. I want to see more, but also I wouldn't necessarily go with the Shot Up comparison personally, just because I think at this point he's played 2 tournaments in a row and went nuts on pretty much every map in both tournaments, where even Shot Up just really had the one, and then it was pretty significant difference the next time we saw him, honestly. Where Texas, I mean, it's 2 tournaments in a row. He's top ranked like goddamn every single map. He's pretty wild.
Do we think there's going to be a big shakeup moving into the Challenger? Do we think that there's going to be the roster shakeup that usually that we kind of saw accompanying like the end of First Strike, but now as we're getting closer into it, there's so much talent here just left waiting out in the open. I mean, they might be signed, but in terms of their availability, they can
I
probably
don't
play
think
on
any
other
of the
teams.
currently established top teams at this point, if they haven't made a move, I don't think they're going to make a move now before challengers. I think they're going to wait. It's too late now. I think if you're like Dig though, right? If you're like a team that obviously is looking to replace people and wasn't a favorite at all to win anything, then I don't think it's too late. But if you're like Sentinels or Envy or TSM, like no one's making any moves at this point. Like there's just no way.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, after the first challenger though, definitely can foresee the big shakeup. But did you have other players you wanted to highlight throughout this? Because I certainly do.
Yeah, I remember there was a bunch, but I can't remember who deserves the props first off the top of my head. So if you've got a list,
I'll give one of my players, which it ties into another point. I mean, because technically Moon Raccoons is falling apart now.
Oh yeah,
which it ties into that point. So rest in peace, Moon Raccoons. But an ex Moon Raccoons player that recently moved that had, I think, a pretty good tournament, all things considered, even if their team didn't do amazing, was Profi. So I think Profi had a really good tournament. Moon Raccoons is gone now. So rest in peace, the Moon Raccoons talent farm. It's fallen apart. But it is. I still think Profi had a really good tournament, though. I think overall Space Station still is like one of my teams that, even though they're not nearly as impressive as LG or Andbox at times, there's just something about them. There's someone I like about Space Station, and maybe it's just because their org name's cool on top of that, but also it's just like I really like how they play at times. And Profi had a really good tournament.
I previously felt quite similarly about Space Station as I did about LG, of them being a really dangerous, highly skilled upset team, and I think that LG pushing, to that next level just by working on their fundamentals and like the way that they are playing around each other is the next step as well for Space Station too. Is like really nailing all of that stuff. You've already got the skill necessary to compete at the tier 1 level with that team. You really do. But it's about tightening things up and having good setups where you're playing off each other and good comms and being aware of where everybody is so that you are lightning fast to react to whatever happens. That's what's really separating that team from being able to be tier 1, I think.
Yeah, I do wonder what they're doing in terms of the calling structure, though, because Profi is not an in-game leader, and they removed their in-game leader to get Profi. So I do wonder what they're doing in regards to that. But yeah, Space Station, they definitely have some ridiculous talent on that team. The Profi has been good, but also I think Boostio has been more and more of a standout when I watch them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Boostio has always been I loved, especially since he was like before. I think it was before Drone really took over, like on Phoenix at times. But like Boostio, at one point, I felt like Boostio was like one of the best Phoenixes in North America with how he played, and then and then Drone kind of just like big dicked it.
Yeah, Boostio has definitely been very talented. One of the players, I mean, we were talking about him a bit earlier, but Critical, he is really good. Critical is very, very good on BBG, and it's been, I think, to me, the main reason why you've seen BBG having such better results. I think Will as well on that team has just pretty much been primarily playing Raze for them. They kind of just injected some excellent individual skill into that BBG roster that has kind of taken them up a little bit of an echelon.
When I watch BBG, though, I'm most impressed by their supportive components normally. Like I'm impressed by Bior more than anything on the Killjoy. Like that guy's got some really nice setups to shut down different attacks. He's got good. He just kind of locks down an area, and then he's good at being able to work off the rest of his team too. Very good utility usage.
Yeah, for sure. Who's some other people on XSET? The Sova that they had just signed, BCJ.
BCJ? Oh, that guy.
He looked dirty.
I call him Big Cock Junkie. BCJ.
Excuse me?
He pounded this tournament, actually.
What all the kids are calling him.
That's what all the kids call him. They call him that.
Yeah, well, he's pretty good. I really enjoy. I've mentioned him 78 times on this show, but I do really like watching Thwyfo play on Cypher. I think he has some very interesting setups. I think he plays a pretty unique style. He's really good at taking map control and defense. He's good at finding these niche timings to push up, and then he'll play around one of his cages in a unique way. I think he's a very talented player.
People still don't know how to say his name on broadcast though. Like a lot of people still don't know that it's like Dwifo versus like they're all just like the Whiffo. Look out for the Whiffo coming through. And it just sounds like they're bagging on him. The poor guy is like, here comes the Whiffo.
I was watching because, like I said, my internet has died. I broke my laptop. Everything's falling to pieces.
You have a laptop?
No, my old laptop doesn't even work anymore. Every time I plug in the charger, it sets on fire.
Did you still that as well?
That seems like it would be hyperbole, but it literally starts a fire every time I plug in the charger. I've burnt things with it.
Stop putting it into the charger then.
Well, yeah, that's the solution, and that's what I've done. I've asked. It doesn't work anymore.
How many times have you tried that, though?
Many, many times, because it used to be the only laptop I had. And if
so much of your stuff actually sets on fire.
Yeah, my webcam set on fire.
Your old
as well.
webcam was like frayed. I remember using it one day, and I remember it seared my finger when I picked it up to adjust it.
Well, the last time I ever used that webcam, because the wires at the back had frayed, because when I transport it, I would curl them around, right? And so it like bends the very edge of the wire. And eventually that had they had been rubbing on each other. And this final day that I used the webcam, I posted it up, I was streaming, I was like, hey, how's it going? And it goes, doo-doom, and just disconnects. And I'm like, that's weird. Oh, well, I'll just pop around and find another webcam. And when I come back, it's literally on fire. The webcam is just on fire because I hadn't unplugged it from the USB
so it was
port.
just heating up.
It was just taking power and transferring it into heat. And that was it.
Because I remember a couple of times the wire would twist in an unnatural way, and whatever happens, I don't know how the fuck electricity works, but the resistance of the wire just built up tremendously, and it would start glowing red hot. And I'd be like, that's incredibly dangerous, Josh, it's yours. I'm assuming you were going to fucking chuck it out.
No, I carried on using it
even more.
Anyway, so a lot of my stuff set on fire, and my internet doesn't work. So I've been watching it Chromecasted to my TV. And so I've just been dominating my apartment with the sounds of the casters. And my girlfriend got really tilted about your boy Dre because she was like, he's not my boy. And I don't know why the casters keep saying that. I was like, no, that's his name. His name's your boy Dre. And then she was like, well, now I'm just similarly annoyed, but I'm annoyed at him. Why doesn't he call himself Dre, not your boy Dre? Stop assuming my relationship with you.
To Dre. I think a lot of the casters just started saying Dre. Like it's sort of like a
say your boy Dre every time.
Your boy Dre.
Your boy Dre. Your boy Dre. Your boy Dre.
I was hearing Simo say Dre. I was hearing Simo say just Dre a couple
maybe.
times. So.
It's a fun name to say entirely.
Yeah,
your boy Dre.
It is, but it gets repetitive. And also, Bok always says a proto instead of just a proto. He says a proto, which I don't know why, but it was driving me insane while I was listening to it. So just you bringing up the Thwifo made me think of those two.
I love that you live in a dark age of technology, Josh, like a second dark age where everything that you own is on fire.
I've been living like a Luddite, just plonking around in my cave with my cat for entertainment, and that's it.
When are you going to have technology again?
I don't know, because so little tangent for everybody. They got in touch with the city to try and register the address, and they said, because of COVID, no one's working at the city department where they register them, so we can't get in touch with anyone. So it'll just happen when it happens. So I'll probably get internet in the fucking year 2025.
No way.
Yeah.
Wait,
really?
So,
yeah.
I feel like I'm racking my brain here. I feel like that's kind of an issue.
Yes, that is a large issue. Yeah, that is a large issue.
Your livelihood depends on you having internet.
Oh yeah, I've lost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars every day. Because I don't want to go into it. Let's carry on. You're bringing up bad memories. I've just been
bad reality.
Yeah, a bad
memories is happening now.
Yeah,
you're living it.
Yep. I am living this nightmare.
Wow.
Where were we? I didn't say it earlier, but I wanted to say it. I'm also very happy for your boy Dre that he's on a successful team. He's successfully recovered from
the 100 Thieves disaster.
The 100 Thieves just blowing that team to pieces and leaving all those guys just
that was
screwed.
Yeah.
So I'm very also for those reasons happy to see them and succeeding.
Yeah.
Is there any standout names we want to talk about before we shift the conversation along? Because
I think there are more we'll talk about as we go on.
Yeah, let's get cracking. Yeah. Oh, well, I suppose the other player is Moose, actually. We talked about Leaf and Infinite, but
I think Moose has transitioned really well, actually.
Yeah, very
but
well.
you can tell that they're a little bit uncomfortable in some scenarios, I think.
Yeah, a little new, you can tell. But
Yeah. But
still
other than that,
doing
like
very
the
well.
potential is absolutely there. It's pretty evident as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very good
who
player.
could that? Who could that be?
My God. Just interruption after interruption.
This hallway is like a clown car. We're just trying to see how many people can fit inside of it.
You get meme.
Yep, you.
What?
We're back, and we have our.
Okay, good. I know. I mean, this is Platchat Valorant's sort of like an all-day thing for me generally because it's in between all the stoppages and starting late. I'm just like I just block out the whole day.
Yeah, we
for
got
Valorant.
a carpet. My mattress is coming soon as well, so we're gonna probably
good.
have another interruption.
Done for
at some
30
point.
minutes bringing that in.
Yeah.
What do we have next on the
The
docket?
next on the docket is, I think it makes sense to talk about Dignitas dropping Odorous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this was probably a long time coming, I think, off of Odorous's performances, I would say.
Yeah. They didn't look that great.
I don't think they looked fantastic, but at the same time, I mean, the circumstances around how they dropped him, I can't remember who they played against, but they played one map, they played two maps, and then on the third map, Odorous's
Handbox.
internet dropped.
Yeah, it was Handbox.
They forfeited,
Yeah.
and then immediately afterwards, the org was just like, we are immediately releasing Odorous.
Yeah.
Like,
it
that
made
was
it
it.
seem like his internet was just never going to come back.
Yeah, like it was very brutish is the word I would use to describe the release of this.
Brutish.
Look at him. Look at the way this is worded.
Yeah.
We've decided to part ways with Odorous. Thank you for your hard work, and we wish you luck in your future endeavors. And that's it. Like,
It's Kurt.
That strikes me as like they just decided right after, like, yeah, that's it. And they just sold the org. There was no preparation. They weren't really thinking about it ahead.
It can't
no
be.
way.
If that was the case,
seems
that has to be like legit. Imagine you're Odorous and you're like, oh, I'm so pissed. My internet dropped during the tournament. And then Dignitas is like, oh, by
They
the
lost
way,
another
you're
game
fired.
after that. What I'm saying is, I think that they were like, oh, okay, there's like 2 weeks before whatever. Well, I don't know what. I'm not good with time and dates, but there's like 2 weeks or so before challengers. We just got to get them off because we need to make it public that we're getting a new player, so we can get someone fast as shit, so we can actually play in challengers.
But they must have known before they started the tournament.
Yeah, but I think that it was maybe it was on their minds, but I think they just decided then, like they clearly weren't prepared. They didn't give him like a little video. They didn't do anything. It just he's gone.
But I think isn't that more to do with Dignitas as the org? Like,
that's what I'm. I'm not.
That's what we're saying.
But I mean,
That's
they
what
could
we're
have
all
known
saying.
for ages and still just not done a video for him.
Yeah, I mean, they could have at least done a little video. Maybe made the image a GIF.
I am loving. I am loving Wyatt's tinfoil hat conspiracy theories.
I actually agree with Wyatt here because the timing of it is so. It'd be one thing if you do it right after, but considering that it was so brief, it's just because like all the other, for the most part, this is like on tier with like what a fucking Moon Raccoons or something would do for a player release. Like it was worse than Moon Raccoons. Moon Raccoons put up like meme images and stuff when Profi was being traded, and they, like I think that I legitimately think that Dig was just like, we've had enough. It's time.
Was so blunt.
Let's go.
Yeah, it really it is.
When you see org communications like this, especially from established organizations that know how to operate social media, because Dignitas knows how to release players. It's not like they haven't done it before and for years. When you see stuff like this from players, my theory is almost always it's either really fast or they intentionally don't like the person. And in this case, I doubt they don't like Odorous. I don't think they have any ill will towards Odorous. It's just they just did it really quickly. And that's a repeated thing I've seen from organizations throughout all esports is like if it's a very brief, curt thing that happens in an interesting time, it's because they're pissed or they just decided to do it really fast.
I think they just decided to get rid of him really fast. They gave Odorous a good amount of time to prove if he was going to be capable of playing at the tier 1 level, because you got to remember where Dignitas were. So the expectations for Dignitas and Valorant, for me, are to be a top 10 team, right?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty reasonable. And I don't think over this period of time, Odorous, he's had some good maps here and there. And most of his games where he looks like he's a solid player are against like lower tier 2 teams. I just don't think he's ready to be on a top 10 team right now. Maybe he will be in the future. And I hope for him he gets there. And honestly, the way that he's been removed, I hope he succeeds. I kind of hope he bounces back.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dignitas needed to make a move. And I think that after losing out in another tournament here where really you should be expecting Dignitas to at least make the semi or quarterfinals in a tournament like this with this competition, and to lose out in groups, I think they knew that the time was up.
Yeah, it definitely was.
And they need to make a change from challengers. And I think that they just decided, we need to make a change. We only have a couple weeks. We just need to get it out there immediately and start trialing people. And I think Dignitas sent Tex the contract before he was eliminated.
That's why I was saying I love the conspiracy theories from Wyatt.
I'm convinced that they just sent that Tex already has the contract in his email. I am convinced.
Because
that's the tinfoil.
Yeah. So you're convinced that that's the case because Odorous was dropped so abruptly?
Yes.
That you think it was because they had a direct replacement that they want to bring in, like, immediately?
Yeah. Not necessarily, but I think that is possible. I think that what is 100% true is that Odorous, he was past his expiry date. The milk has expired.
Yeah.
He's no longer drinkable.
Lucio always behind us.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was time for a move to be made. And they want to get someone before challengers. I think that is 100% true.
Yeah.
I think after this loss, they decided this was the time. I think that's all very true. But I also
agree
think
with that
it's possible that they sent Tex the contract while he was still playing. Yes.
Just a DocuSign PDF.
I think they sent that to him. They got his address. They already sent him the signing bonus check. It's being delivered by the USPS right now. It's about to arrive at his doorstep. So I think that's my tinfoil theory.
There you go.
But
that would be a good addition. I think that, but I don't think that would solve everything for Dig. I think they could get, like if they got, I don't know, Shanks back, for example, who's been doing very well in the team that he joined. If they got Shanks back on Dignitas like he was filling in for them for a while, I don't think that this would immediately rocket Dignitas back up to being top 10 level. I think they've got some fundamental issues with like how they hold certain maps and how they just play generally. It's not that they are tactically poor, but they just don't have thought put into their setups and holds as much as other teams do. And there's holes all over the map. They're very lackluster, and they don't seem to have too much teamwork or thought put into how they're actually playing. I'm impressed whenever I watch this team with Def primarily and Maka secondarily, but the team, I'm never impressed with the team. At least not in recent tournaments.
I would tend to agree. There's something that happens psychologically where the first time you see someone in a game or a team and they perform really well, it sticks with you. Because there's something about Superman that I can't get out of my mind that he's like, no, he's this really good rifler. He's such a good player.
That's just called first impressions, Wyatt. it's a well-documented fact of
and
human
it happens with gaming. That's what I'm saying. It happens with gaming too. Okay, and it takes a long time for those thoughts to change. I can't get out of my mind. Back whenever it was, I don't know, 2003, when Superman was playing Brimstone with Dignitas before they were signed, and he just had that freakish tournament where he just looked like a madman, right?
Yeah.
I can't get that out of my mind. But since then, he really has not had one good tournament. He's been okay. Yeah. He's been fine for the most part, but he has never really lived up to that first showing. And I think Psalm has been okay at Duelist, but I still feel like he was at his best when he was on Sova back in 2002.
Yeah.
But now they have Maka, who he didn't have a great tournament in this one, but in the previous tournaments, he has really been the standout for the team. Aside from Def, who I think Def has really just been, Def is the guy.
Class.
He's going to get he is one of the players. The kills he gets are always high impact. He's getting the round-winning kills for that team very consistently. I think they have some good pieces, but this is a start at the very least. Odorous wasn't working out. They need a higher skilled duelist.
Mm-hmm. The only knock you can make on Def is that he's the IGL, and the team is not set up to succeed right now in terms of like how they're actually playing the team overall. But individually, looks fantastic. Yeah. Always surprised by how good he is whenever I watch him.
Yeah.
Turn up.
What's the next topic?
T1, head coach, fraud, parting ways, disagreements internally, ethical differences.
ethical
that was
differences.
he literally said
Ethical
ethical. Did you read the
differences.
tweet? The tweet, if you can bring it up, Kurt,
Yeah.
is
There's a VLR article as
What
well.
are T1 doing? Human sacrifices to get
This
further
is
in
what I'm
tournaments.
confused by, right? Because they parted ways, and Frod has cited that in the VLI article, it spells it out. But here we go: difference of ethics and opinions on how to run the team/org.
Yes.
Ethics.
And
That's
that's
a
a
big
super
word.
harsh exit tweet too from someone
Yeah,
who's
it
been in
is.
an organization. That's a very harsh
He-
tweet. That's
he
literally
tweeted
you
this
saying they're doing
before-
something bad.
He tweeted this before the org did. Like the org didn't have an exit tweet for him. He was literally saying, "I'm looking for a team."
Well,
Like,
what does it mean? How to run the
maybe
org? Isn't he a
He's a
coach?
coach. Yeah.
Well, unless
Yeah.
he's referring to the roster specifically.
referring probably to the
suppose- I
roster.
suppose so,
Yeah.
right?
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
that is the
I don't know
team.
what to make.
I don't think
of
he's going to Faker and telling him like, "I disagree with how you're running the League of Legends division." Yeah,
Maybe,
Like,
maybe he tried, and that's why he's gone.
I mean, but you don't do that. I feel like you
No,
can't do
I-
that.
No,
to
no,
Faker.
I-
He'd
but,
slap you down.
I think what's happened here is that I think Frod comes from like CS, and correct me if I'm wrong.
You are correct.
You think?
So no, I worded that incorrectly. When I say I think he comes from
speculative
Frod,
thought.
speculative.
Just recorded history.
Okay. All right, boys. All right, calm it down. Calm it down. I know he comes from CS. What I meant to say is, I think because he comes from CS, it's got that kind of injection of, because it's been around for a long time as a scene, right?
Yes.
Also facts.
Yep.
Also,
I'm trying to get a bit of head nodding going on here.
Can we find out when 1.5
I'm
was
talking
released?
to a fucking brick wall over here. I'm trying to get some acknowledgement. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
sitting back. I'm
Cool.
ready to be receptive. Here we go. I'm ready. Bryn. Keep
So
going.
my kind of like thought process here is that there's definitely a bit of an old boys club when it comes to like the way that CS is ran as a scene.
Okay.
Yep. We're on the same page so far.
I'm nodding like a
You're
fucking
nodding, you are
Churchill
nodding.
dog right now.
You are
I'm nodding.
So I think in terms of the way that, especially with T1, I know that the way that they operate as an org, it's a lot of like outside influence now coming in from Comcast with that acquisition, right? With the combination, the SKT Telecoms and T1 and everything else. It's definitely kind of been rushed up to speed differently to how most esports org probably in CS are being ran, in terms of there's now actual proper business behind it. Does that make sense?
So kind of, but what specifically would that
So
even
what I think that would
mean?
entail is like largely the running of the org, not based off of speaking to the coach. What do you think? What's your opinion on this? A lot of suit decisions, I think, in terms of running off of the spreadsheets and the numbers. They've got until this period of time to I don't know, pull their weight in the org, otherwise they're gone. Oh, their social numbers aren't that good. Oh, they're gone. They're taking these things into account that normally, if you're like playing in a CS org, you'll be speaking to the owner. Like the coach will be speaking to the owner. Whereas I can see there's probably a disconnect.
I can see where you're coming from.
I can see a disconnect happening inside T1. Now, we got there eventually. I mean, I was being fucking hurled, fucking shit being hurled at me from the apes on the other side of this desk. But I got there eventually with my point.
But my issue with that is it's so speculative because we have no idea how T1 actually runs an org. Like, I don't think any of
it's
us...
pure
And even if that were the
speculation.
case, right? Even if they disagreed on roster decisions, this is the wording of the tweet is so harsh. He's literally cites ethics.
Ethics,
You know,
yeah.
this is beyond like we have disagreement. Like it's one thing if he said like we had some disagreements in how we wanted to have the team run. He said difference of ethics.
Yeah, this is what makes me think that it is like decisions are being made in the team that are not consulting him that he thinks would be unethical, like literally removing people from the roster and not giving them like ample opportunity or time on the roster, or like removing their salary or stuff like this. Like some harsh shit that in the business world, like they're just seeing a spreadsheet and they're just cutting the numbers out.
Yeah. The thing is, though, the problem with all of this is it's pure,
it is pure
unadulterated speculation to the nth degree.
Haven't spoke to anyone from T1. Haven't spoke to Frod. Haven't spoke to any internal parties.
I mean, it could just be that Frod doesn't really get how harsh a term ethics is. I mean,
Yeah,
it literally could be that simple. I doubt it is, but it could be.
Tweet just from the outside. Like even if he doesn't mean like something that's like super bad from like a PR like org based perspective, if you have someone say we have a difference of ethics and how a business is supposed to be run,
ethics is such a strong word.
It's a strong word. And like if Fraud doesn't realize what he's posted, that's a mistake because outside orgs are gonna look at this and be like, what? Like, it's really harsh.
It's
like,
possible as well that they had a difference of ethics because Fraud wants to do some horrific shit and they don't want to let it.
Yeah, I mean,
I let him go because they were too fucking sanctimonious.
It is weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's such an odd tweet, and I don't. The thing is, as well, we're coming from a place of utter ignorance with Fraud and T1 because no one even spoke about Fraud at any point except to be like,
what is he doing?
What does he do?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that was ever said about Fraud on this team. So what? You have no reference point at any sense to talk about it.
And not to say, what does he do as if it's posing that he doesn't do anything. What does this guy even do? Like literally, we just don't know what he does.
Yeah, we don't know.
Quite literally do not know what he does.
Yeah, I mean,
which is the case with all coaches, really, unless you're talking directly to them.
But I think if you pick up a native coach from Valorant, it's probably because your team wants a coach, you've trialed the coach and you like them, and you think that they're going to be additive to the roster. When you're a T1 team that's full of old CS people and you're hiring someone who is very much old CS, that strikes me as a possibility that he was just there for some like easy paycheck and was, not contributing too much. That happened all the time in Overwatch, which is why I think it was reasonable to pose a similar question here. That's not saying that he did, though. We were just wondering, like, literally, what does he do? We have zero info, so it's impossible to. It's just rampant.
I like to run with my speculation.
Unbelievable speculation.
I mean, I've
been playing too much Cyberpunk, and he's waging war on the corporations,
I've seen so much speculation with this, and everybody needs to relax because you don't know. Like one thing I've been seeing a lot is just people saying like, "Oh, finally, T1's going to change their style." What are you talking about? Do you work with T1? Is this Brax on an alt? It's like, I mean, what? It's like KD when he had his Twitter alt responding about his play.
Like, do they refer to T1 style as like how they're playing Valorant or like their organizational style?
How they play? Like, people are like, oh, finally T1 are going to stop playing slow. Shut up. You quite literally don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah, we have no idea whether the improvements that happened in T1 were anything to do with Fraud.
Maybe
or whether
they had to do with Fraud.
Yeah, maybe all of those improvements were Fraud, like some Gigabrain just teaching them how to play the game.
They're like, no, we don't like this. We want to go back to playing really slow again. Sorry, Fraud.
I doubt that that's the case. It doesn't make sense, but it could be.
Like Josh was saying, though, he was the driver, but because of the ethics, the org wouldn't let him beat the bottom of their feet more. Every time that they was like, you're playing just way too fast. And then the org's like, stop that. And he's like, well, I got to separate over the difference of ethics.
Oh God.
And so he's sort of like, he's a tragic superhero. He's a duality of man type of character. He can create great teams, but only at great personal cost. It's possible.
Oh God, yeah. So
fucking move us on before we say some career-ending shit.
What do we have? We're gonna talk.
Giants, huh?
Did we skip over the Moon Raccoons?
So we talked briefly about it because this episode has gone on so long, and my mattress is going to arrive, and we also need to record an interview.
Can we give Moon Raccoons their 3 minutes of due time?
I talked about Moon Raccoons a little bit when I talked about Profi was the thing. But
go on. Wyatt wants to talk about. Wyatt wants to eulogize.
Like a fan favorite team. Yeah, I want to give them a little eulogy. Yeah, I mean, it's sad.
Oh shit, my mattress is here.
On this show, it's like an Amazon warehouse. There's so much inventory moving in and out of this place.
Okay, I just wanted to say, I just wanted to give Moon Raccoons their due because they had been a fan favorite team. They've been an entertaining team to watch over the past few months. They were a team with a lot of potential. And it's just sad that they were never able to find an organization and be able to stick together and really see their full potential. it's just unfortunate. And then it's just not that I'm happy for the other players who do get signed, but then it's like when you see Ghost Gaming sign a team that's just been formed, it's like,
yeah, I mean,
really?
Ghost signed Mamba Mode, who haven't been as successful as Moon Raccoons.
Yeah, it's
and weren't a full team for as long. It's very strange. I feel like Moon Raccoons at some point, I mean, I know that Moon Raccoons at some point were in talks with an organization and were close to being signed. And the fact that fell through is really unfortunate for them. And they weren't able to avoid the vultures poaching them from all different directions.
Yeah. And you could kind of see at the end, too, it looked like when they were playing, you could kind of tell their days were numbered towards the end, honestly. And it's just unfortunate to see. The players on the team are excellent. They're also very unique. They have interesting players on that team to watch, really like across the board. So it's just unfortunate to see them go, and that can affect the team a lot though when you're struggling to get signed and it's all these guys around you are getting signed. Remember Vass when we were trying to get signed back at Overwatch?
Yeah.
All these.
Well, actually, I was about to bring up that anecdotal point about if Moon Raccoon's not getting signed, but like because Mamba Mode is a slightly how new like in terms of roster formation date. How old is Mamba Mode comparatively to this Moon Raccoons core?
I think Mamba Mode was before Moon Raccoons, but they were under an org.
They were with Mamba Mode for a bit, but this iteration of Ghost Gaming that has Nismo, who I was telling you guys is a cracked out upcoming player. Yeah. But that team is new.
Yeah,
what
so
a sad
I
know that is
think
so sad. That just brings a tear to my eye.
Can you find some happy gifs of raccoons to make us feel better about this?
Find a happy raccoon gift.
We are 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Until
the next delivery, until the next truck driver pulls up and it's like, where do you want it, boss?
No, they gotta bring it in
because
it's fucking heavy as shit.
All right, well, let's keep we'll power through.
What do we have? Giants?
Giants, yep.
That's a happy little...
Giants have signed...
a badger or a skunk or something. Oh, no, it isn't a raccoon.
That's a raccoon.
No, that's definitely a raccoon.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to cut this short. If you want to talk about Moon Raccoons a little bit more.
I mean, I don't really have much more to say. I just wish the players the best.
I'm about to bring about an anecdote of why I think Moon Raccoons as a core was not signed while the Mamba Mode revitalized roster was, simply because, bringing back to your previous anecdote, Wyatt, about when we were trying to get signed, when we were a team, was that essentially I feel like a lot of orgs, they much rather would have full control of the roster, and I have a feeling Moon Raccoons probably wanted to come together as a core, and that the org wanted more control of the roster, so they just said, well, we don't want to sign the whole core, so we're going to do this so we can sign some other people. And that's my base guess.
Yeah,
so.
Could be. But I wish those guys the best. Good team, good players.
I think they'll end up on teams. I think these players will end up, they're not just going to fade away into the ether. Giants signed Prodigy and Meadow. Meadows ended up on a team.
Yes.
Prodigy's being signed. I don't know what team is being made up of Prodigy at the moment.
It's the same. I think it's the exact same roster that they used in First Strike.
Okay.
But
minus Delisi.
Yeah,
plus
Delisi.
Pretty cool, honestly.
Really good team.
Yeah.
That should be one to look out for.
This looks like
sure.
an instant addition to the EU scene to kind of like compete at the upper section.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Absolutely. I mean, they looked like they could have beaten Liquid, honestly, when they played against them in the qualifier for First Strike. They had a good performance against them. They won a map. I think Ascent is like a particularly very strong map for them. I think they're going to have to switch around their roles a little bit, right? I think Pipson is picking up a slightly different role to accommodate for Meadow, but they're immediately going to be a top team. And I'm interested to see Meadow play again as well.
Oh, shit.
And just see whether he plays differently compared to when he was with FPX.
Yeah, absolutely. This roster is going to be sick. I'm very impressed by really across the board the players have. I don't know if people really rate Boo, but I think he's been a standout to me on this roster, actually. Aside from like sort of the obvious where you have Happy on the Raze and Hoodie's opping is out of control. Yeah. I mean, this is a really solid lineup across the board. This is just good. All five are good. This is a great roster.
Yeah, it's got great structure, good calling, good players, a good kind of breadth of styles, and all of their players play the right agents. It's just a really good team. It's going to be good in the future as well. And we've lost our host to a mattress dispenser.
And Bryn is gone. And Bryn is gone.
Let me take a peek at the net. Oh,
I think we have
an Amazon package. Where's
we
your
had like
mattress?
2 topics.
No, my
left.
mattress is here, but I realized they're at the wrong address, so we're going to continue until they are here.
Life is chaos when you've just moved into
Jesus
a place.
Christ. We're moving on to Wyatt's Weekly Award
Okay.
as the next topic. As the
Okay.
final topic.
Sure.
Sorry, it was abrupt. Normally I'd lead it in with something. I
Yeah,
said,
I
go
know.
run the clip. But in this case, it's chaos.
I mean, you can still run the clip though.
You can still run a clip, yeah.
It's Wyatt's Weekly Award.
What is that? What is that?
It's a wrestler. I like
where
that
is
a
it?
lot.
That is a
I like
that is a new
lot.
Kurt. Could you grab it? Kurt's running to get the award.
I really like
got it in
that
the pantry.
the mythos that's being created here, where now Wyatt is like in a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids scenario for his award, and he's like walking as a miniature amongst it. I like that.
All right, so yeah, we have the new award here. Sort of a
Oh, they're wrestling.
sort of a
Yeah, it's a
wrestling
wrestling.
themed award.
Right. I was wondering
So-
what they were doing.
Yeah. So new Wyatt's Weekly Award here. How about that? Huh?
That is fabulous.
How about
it's,
that?
It's the second tallest of the Wyatt's Weekly Awards, almost
Yes.
matching up. In fact, if you look at head height, it is the tallest. That one's just got a bat above it.
So all new
Well, who does
award,
it go to?
new trophy. This one, I almost gave it to a proto twice. I almost gave a proto a second Wyatt's Weekly
Oh,
Award.
I thought you
Proto
meant
got-
twice in 1 week.
But that would have
Yeah.
been blasphemy. I couldn't. I mean, I can't give it to two
Okay.
of the same guy already.
might be
That's
able to.
ridiculous. I am going to give it to Thief though, because this was the Thief standout
Yeah.
tournament.
Hell yeah.
In so many different facets of the game, he excelled. It wasn't just his clutching, which he's incredible at. So many key rounds, he would just come up and magically find the kills to win. Like thinking of the end of that Bind game where they were on that crucial retake. I can't remember the exact score, but it was one of the final rounds. On the retake, it was into a 3v5, and he just finds 4 kills out of absolutely nowhere to clutch out and
that
win
was
the round.
unreal.
Actually unbelievable.
And he did that where he just randomly found 3 or 4 kills. I remember a round on Haven. I remember 2 rounds on Bind where he did it, one at the end and one in the middle. And he just kept pulling them out all over the place.
His clutching is unbelievable, but he's also very selfless when he has to be the entry man. And past his good entering, his good aim, and his clutching, also, he's able to find those insane lurk kills that allow his team to potentially win these rounds that they have no right to win because he finds the area on the map that he can exploit. He can find the pick. His play is so good on really every aspect right now that I think... I mean, just another ridiculous
That's
round.
crazy. That's a 2v4 that they
His
got beasted
aim
on.
is just unbelievable. Like if that Bind play at the end, the one kill,
Final round
the
of Bind.
third kill that he gets, he's got like 4 bullets and 20 HP. I mean, just no right to be getting some of the kills that he finds. I really believe that by the end of 2021, we might be looking at him as one of the best players in NA. I mean, he's definitely making claim to be rising towards the top right now, but what he's been able to do in this tournament, I mean, he's been good. He's been not good. He's been really good for months now. He's been a standout on this team, but what we saw in this tournament was just something else. Yeah, this round was unbelievable. I mean, that was the game-winning round.
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere. And they were going to be on an eco if they lost this round as well,
Yeah,
LG. They
that
came in
was-
3v5. All the money spent on that round.
Yeah, that was the defining round of like the game, honestly. Like the whole series. If they lose that, there's a chance they lose Bind. They end up losing the entire series.
Yeah, just an
Wild.
unbelievable performance from the man.
Yeah, completely agree with it. Now, sorry to say that the mattress man is here.
Yes.
So I do have to put an end to the episode.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people are going to be saying, well, why the fuck didn't you just reschedule your mattress if you knew you were recording today? Well, the answer is, I got the message yesterday, couldn't reschedule it, no way to actually reschedule it. The only option I had was to track it. So,
So what we've had a locksmith, 3 deliveries, and a mattress.
And a
being
mattress
delivered.
now being delivered.
There was a plumber that came over earlier as well. For some reason, everything happens on Mondays. With no way of
There
getting
it
them
is.
rescheduled in
And the
Texas.
episode we started a little bit later than normal. Is this our longest, like not necessarily the longest going out on the platforms, but
Who
the
knows?
longest total
But-
sit down time we've been here?
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
We started at 10 a.m. It's 6 p.m. now.
I got to... It was not 6 p.m. I got to put an end to this podcast. I got to put a stop to it. We're going to end it here. So thanks for watching, everybody. Episode 28.
Do you want to tease the guest?
Interview coming up on Wednesday with Boaster. So you got that to look forward to. Everybody knows Boaster, of course, you know.
Yeah. From Summon FC.
Exactly.
He's also, if you haven't seen, check some Twitter clips or something of Boaster. The guy is a nutcase.
Yeah,
he's actually really fun.
This is some just EU representation that we're injecting into the scene because we know that you don't like it, but it's like medicine. We're forcing it down your neck. Okay, we know you want us to talk about North America all the time. We don't care.
Broccoli, you little bastard.
Like fish oil, you know. We're just kind of like you're having this with your tea. Okay, it's healthy. It's good for you.
And
you're
then I think
learn about the EU scene.
We were originally going to have Sean Garris on this week, but we're going to have him on next week instead because he was a bit under the weather.
So those are the next couple of guests. So thanks for watching. Make sure you leave a comment if you want to see any more guests as well. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hit the bell notification. And we'll frickin' see you next time, huh?